Hello, and welcome to The Fool and the Philosopher.
The Philosopher and The Fool.
So I've been watching some YouTube videos, as I do.
Yeah.
And I noticed that, Rasputin and the architect of games, and Adam Millard, possibly?
Are these all YouTubers?
Yeah, they're both YouTubers, the two of them.
When someone uses a historical figure's name as their YouTuber
His name's Rasputin, not Rasputin.
Okay.
They both released videos after we recorded the episode about game design, very similar to what we were talking about. What makes a good open world, and also how to design a game. Like creativity, go from the ground up, don't just copy the past over and over again.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that. Our videos we record at this point like 2 months in advance almost.
It basically turns out to that, yeah. Because the videos come out every fortnight. And we're about...
We record a week ahead.
Yeah, we're about 3 fortnights ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, so 1 week away from a month, 2 months basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we record quite a bit ahead. So it seems like... And this happens a lot. It happened with the meta Reddit thing.
Yeah.
It happened with... there was a couple more. I think it was another game design thing I talked about. But also with where I invented meta Reddit before Dissenter came out.
Mm.
The thing is, they come out in this 2 month time span, right?
Yeah.
You can't program Dissenter in a week.
Yes.
They don't have bugs in our house.
Videos don't get planned.
Yeah, and like Rasputin, I'm sure he takes weeks or months to make his videos. Mm-hmm. And they come out one after the other like we do.
Yeah.
But what that tells me is that we had the ideas around the same time.
Well,
the Dissenter people had the ideas before, obviously, but it wasn't out there in the world.
My thought is it could just be a product of a lot of videos and different points of references all happen around the relatively same time. So in the case with Rasputin, we could just be observing a lot of very similar things and coming to those conclusions near the relatively same times because of the observations and interactions in our life.
So, let's say a lot of bad or good open world games come out and we notice them, and then that causes us to have an opinion about them. Yeah, that could be the case. With the Dissenter thing, it's a bit... They obviously started that years before, and it's a bit more of an idea that could have happened at any point.
Yeah.
But it is... It made me wonder, though, if there's a time for ideas. I've been thinking about thought, and there's a thing that I've never thought about exactly. I've thought about the thought of it.
Have you thunk it?
I've thunk it a few times, but never thunk it properly, because whenever I try to think about it, something pushes me away.
Mm.
So you know, is there an example in Mistborn? I'm trying to think. So in the superhero series I'm reading, the Worm and the whatnot, the things that grant powers, they can grant you powers like omniscience.
Yeah.
However, there's limitations built in by the powers themselves, so you can't understand the powers, for example. So they create blind spots for the people they give the powers to. And I think in Mistborn, the gods can't read stuff etched in metal.
In Memory, Thorn and Sorrow, the author's done something I've never really noticed another author do, which is characters will get vital information, and then they'll forget it. And you don't really see books do that, where it's like, here's some vital information, it's like, I can't remember. And it's like... But we just went through this. But it was a traumatizing experience. And even the dark forces in the series, a lot of magic's like done in mind games. And so the main character sees a horrible ritual happen and basically burned into his brain. And then he's trying to tell people about it, and he faints because the magic basically made him black out of the ritual. Yeah,
and there's also dissociation in the real world where you just blot a memory out. But this is more like... I know what it is. In the Wheel of Time, Nynaeve is the most powerful woman channeler there is, I think, besides maybe Athi, whatever. The girl that appears in the last book for 2 chapters. And I think she's stronger. But Nynaeve's up there.
Yeah.
Nynaeve's second.
Yeah.
Because both of them were there for the final fight in the massive spoiler area.
Yes.
But she can't do the power. Whenever she tries to call on it throughout the series, a mental block appears where she just kind of skirts away from the idea of drawing on power, and so she can only really use her power accidentally.
Yeah.
This thinking about thoughts thing is kind of like that. Whenever I've tried to think about it in the past, I've just sort of shied away from it. But Jordan Peterson was talking about it, and he phrased it well enough that I realized other people have had this thought, and also it gave me a grounding to try to think about. So I was talking about how ideas seem to happen all at once.
Yeah.
So where do ideas come from? Because when you have a thought, so you have to. So I just asked you a question.
Yeah.
Where do ideas come from? Now you're going to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do when you think about something?
I think you get a bunch of former points of reference. That's kind of, but not really.
But they should be instantly accessible, right? If they're...
Yeah, but they aren't. You have to sort of muddle your way into it.
And why do you...
It's like an Etch-a-Sketch kind of like putting together an image with an Etch-a-Sketch.
Or it's like shouting into a cave and waiting for the answer to bounce back. Because have you noticed... So this is something I notice a lot when I'm designing games.
Yeah.
Is I will try to come up with a system to make something work.
Yeah.
Like, I needed something to pull together that cowboy RPG I'm working on.
Yeah.
And so I need another aspect to this. I don't even know what the aspect is, but it needs something else. It needs another action you can take in the game. And then I'll go for a walk. And I'll be kind of thinking, I need another aspect. And then, phew, fully formed, this thing will just arrive and it'll be like, here you go. And I'll be like, okay, I'll just tweak that a little bit and perfect.
Well, I even find that in writing, when I try to write short stories or basically anything, I have no idea a lot of the time how that writing gets down onto the page. And that's doubly bad for me, because I write it all down, then I walk away from it, come back. It's no longer legible because of how terrible I am at spelling. And I don't even remember what I wrote to extent and how it got there. And so I was trying to decipher the works of someone I don't know, almost.
So, imagine, you don't have to picture it visually, but just, let's say you're writing, right? Mm-hmm. And you need an apple in your scene, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, what color is the apple?
Red.
Okay, you could have chosen green.
Yeah.
But you chose red.
Yeah.
What is that? Is that a coin flip? Is that...
It's kind of a Monty Python where I thought, red, no green, no red, okay, say red. But it sort of just bounced until, it's kind of a coin flip.
Until you say something.
I was also thinking relatively red and yellow, kind of like one of those more in-depth apples.
But
red's very simple.
But what is your decision-making process? Why can you even conceptualize an answer? Is it random? Is it sorted? Is it based on a most likely thing? So, Jordan Peterson, what he said was, when we think, it's very similar to the idea of prayer. You go, hey God, I need answers, and then you go, here you go. And that made me think about the ancient Greek poets. Yeah. So Homer's writings were written by Homer.
Yeah.
But they were Greek mythology. And that goes for all the poets. Like the guy I talked about last week, who I can't remember the name of, who talked about the Isle of the Blessed.
Yeah.
And that's 2 weeks ago, I guess. Or anyways. And Virgil and whatnot. I think Virgil. Anyways.
It's even worse that I messed up the order for a week. Oh, 2 of them.
Oh.
I put one before the other. And that's bad because we sometimes correct things we said.
Yeah, and we talk about past things as well. So it really does seem similar to the ancient Greek idea of... So we know who wrote it, but the gods grant the poets in sleep. So poets have 3 dreams. They have prophecy, they have lies, and nonsense? I can't remember. There's 3 kinds of dreams in ancient Greek from the 3 gods of sleep. So Hypnos, Morpheus, and...
You sort of know 2 of them, you can't remember the 3rd.
Yeah, and the bad dream guy.
Yeah.
And they go into your dreams and they can taunt you with nightmares, or they can give you visions of the future, or they can give you false visions of the future.
Yeah.
So there's false visions of the future, true visions of the future, and nonsense.
All right.
And I don't know where creative inspiration falls into that, actually. But you essentially, as a ancient Greek poet, you say, okay, the gods have given me this vision, I'll write it out, and here you go. And so the oracle as well. She went to the crack, the volcanic vent in the ground, and sat upon it on her triangle.
Tripped out.
Yes, but that was the access to the gods. Because she saw visions in there, and that was the gods speaking to her. And when people pray, I need to pray on this. I will pray for help. I will pray for... And a solution will come to people who pray.
Yeah.
So, here's a... This isn't what I think is reality. This is just an example of how we were talking about last time. The entire foundation of the world could be totally different from what we have.
Yeah.
So imagine that layered on top of our own reality, or outside of our reality in a grander scheme of things. There's giant blimp-like creatures flying by.
All right.
Okay, kind of like, what's that Edge series called? The Edge Chronicles?
Yeah.
So, like those Edge Chronicles mist wraiths and whatnot.
Yeah.
These giant creatures flying by. These creatures are flying at different altitudes, elevations, and they pass by.
All right.
Now, everyone on Earth has harpoons.
Okay.
And they're constantly firing the harpoons into the sky to try to hit these creatures. Or they're just firing at random.
All right.
But you can also try to target the creatures. Each creature contains a complete platonic idea. So what happens is, when a creature comes close enough to Earth, multiple people will hit it at the same time by accident. However, if a creature is much further away, then only those aiming at it will hit it. And if you pull some creatures close, the other ones on top come down. So sometimes you can't shoot at one because there's other creatures in the way. So you can't invent the jet engine back in, I don't know, the Stone Age, because these creatures are too far away, or they're too hard to hit, or even if you do reel it in, its information is nonsense to you, so you dismiss it. Or because it's a platonic ideal, you get the idea of flight, but you don't get the idea of the internal combustion engines going into the wings and that sort of thing. And these creatures go by.
All right.
So that's a model of the world that would explain why calculus was invented simultaneously in two different places, and why these videos come out at the same time. And they don't have to be creatures. They could be like orbs flying through. But it is just a model of the universe, and I thought that was an interesting idea. And so when you pray, what you're doing is you're just rapid firing, like, or you think, when you have a think, you're rapid firing harpoons into the sky, trying to hit something. And you could say intelligence or maybe creativity is a function of how many harpoons you have, or maybe intelligence is how fast you're firing, and creativity is how many harpoons you have, something like that, if you wanted. But yeah, it's just a model of the world. Now, the other thing I noticed was that...
Well, it's interesting.
Yeah, no, keep going.
So, Jordan Peterson had to talk with Richard Dawkins, and it was an incredibly infuriating talk to watch, because Pearson likes talking very, very fluffily, and Richard Dawkins doesn't like people talking fluffily. Jordan Peterson loves talking about religion and symbolism. Richard Dawkins seems to hate religion, and he understands symbolism, but he doesn't like it being used. And so he needs you to prove absolutely everything that you say to him. And so, anyways, enough of that pre-ramble to that. Jordan Peterson was talking about DNA and the double snakes, and how so people took ayahuasca and in South America.
Yep.
And they saw the two snakes wrapping around each other, and to the South Americans, there's a symbol of health, there's a symbol of the creation of the universe, there's two snakes.
And there's the caduceus in ancient Greece.
Yeah, so the ancient Greeks have it. The Norse ate, I think it's cybacillin mushrooms. They're...
that is a kind of psychedelic drug.
Yeah, the Norse had mushrooms that they're skalds, I think. Or they're
Skalds are their poets.
Yeah, they're skalds and they're Scoti. They're wise men.
Yeah, I don't remember what those are called, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so both of them ate these mushrooms, and they also got visions of two serpents intertwined. They got visions of the Yggdrasil as well, and the world serpent. But one of the things they definitely got was the snakes.
The double helix,
Yeah, the double helix. The Greeks had it as a sign of health. The Christians, Moses, had that as a symbol. He was told about it. And there's beliefs that Moses ate hallucinogenic mushrooms a lot, and that's how he got visions of God and guided people through. And that's the burning bush theory. Even is he's smoking basically.
So Moses had a staff with a bronze serpent on it that protected people from all harm, or from snakes, essentially.
Yeah,
which is evil if you want to look at it a different way. So I don't think.
So anyways, where Jordan Peterson is getting at is. He's also taken hallucinogenics, and he saw the
double helix.
Double helix. And so he's saying that there's different levels of consciousness, and that we can keep seeing down, we can see into molecules. And he's saying, now, I don't know if this is true, but I've seen it, And then Richard Dawkins said, yes, but you've known about these experiences, so that's going to inform your taking psychedelics, so that you're going to see these things. However, even Richard Dawkins had to concede he didn't know how the Amazonians and the Norse both at the same time saw that, and it meant the thing that meant to them.
Well, I think that's actually fairly simple to answer in some ways. They're both humans, and they're taking a similar active compound, and so it's going to...
Well, no, they also talked about that, but just the symbolism being very similar in the both. They talked about them both being humans, and it's the active compound that makes hallucinogens.
Right, but a human is also going to say...
Yeah.
There's no reason why the double helix shouldn't be health for one group and also not health for the other. There's a reason the moon is feminine in most cultures, and the sun is masculine in most cultures. And Japan is the weird exception.
Yeah, and Tolkien.
Huh. So, Jordan Peterson, I don't actually think he speaks very fluffily. I think he speaks on a different level of resolution than most people. He speaks on a mythological level, which I think is the opposite of fluff, because humans are stories. We're not... Richard Dawkins is he's like the most religious man I've ever seen. He's so devoted to his rationalism and his atheism. It seems crippling almost, and I don't know what he's actually like in person.
That's what that talk felt like.
But he seems... So, Jordan Peterson and Stephen Fry talked about Dawkins, actually. And Stephen Fry said... the famous group of atheists, like there's Fry and Dawkins and Hitchens and Sam Harris and a few others. Stephen Fry was saying about Dawkins, like, he's just crazy about rationalism. Like, I'm an empiricist myself, because... And we talked about this before with Ignace Semmelweis, which I got from that episode... Like, I learned more about him, but I got from that episode where Stephen Fry talks about him. And it does seem to be the case that empirically rationalism fails again and again and again. So it's very weird to base your foundation on. Because the other thing about rationalism, science in general, science is so slow. We get to what science is doing is it's getting to the point humanity has been at for 50,000 years, 100,000 years. And it's just saying, look, I did the work all the way along the way. So it's nice that someone's doing it. But I think science should be treated more as humanity's side hobby, their side project, rather than... I heard on the news today something awful. They're lifting COVID restrictions here, for vaccination restrictions, so you can now fly without a vaccine, that sort of thing.
In Canada?
Here specifically.
Oh, okay. Australia.
Right. Yeah. And what they said was, this is a decision based on science.
Yeah. You're
a politician, not a scientist. You shouldn't be making your decisions based on science. Especially since science can say what it wants. And so, are you in charge or are the scientists in charge?
Well, one of the biggest things about science, I've been a psychology student, you have as well. This is very important psychology. It's a huge thing where psychologists go, oh shoot, I was wrong.
Yeah.
Like when you try to recreate a test, it's like, yeah, my study showed all this. Did you double blind it? Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do... Oh, I forgot to do that thing. Okay, all these results are worthless.
I don't think the scientists normally go, oh no, it's because...
Well, it's not even, oh no, it's like, scientists are actually quite excited when they get something wrong.
But you shouldn't be making decisions on anything they're saying. Yeah. And the scientists themselves, most of them, know this.
Yeah.
This is a very interesting side hobby that humanity has been doing for the past 500 years. And it... in very specific circumstances, in very narrow dimensions, shows improvement. But not in specific circumstances at all. In specific dimensions. Yeah. We can create a computer, let's say. But that doesn't actually mean anything. Did it improve humanity? Did it improve human life? People talk about progress, and scientific progress is great because it's raising the standard of living for humans. Is it? Well, there's less people getting sick, there's less people starving. Right, but does that actually make your life better? Does that actually make your life more worth living? Because I think for the last 200 years, 250 years, the standard of living has gone significantly down in the rationalist world, which might be what they mean by the modern world, is actually the scientific world. That would be an interesting... It'd be interesting to see if there's overlap there. When God was killed, as Nietzsche talked about, the entire human psyche suffered. Yeah. And, well, we can never wash the blood from our hands, as Nietzsche said. That is not some... So Sam Harris has actually been trying to fix this, essentially. Yeah. And I need to read one of his books, but I've only seen talks by him. But from what I understand, what he says is it's very easy to imagine hell. And from hell, you can construct the idea that we should avoid hell. And therefore, avoiding hell is something to move towards.
Yeah.
And therefore, that's the foundation for morality and meaning and humanity. But I think Nietzsche already had a counter-argument for that, which is you don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
There is no reason... So, humanity only works if people are moving away from hell, working towards meaning under Sam Harris's system. So that makes Sam Harris's system very good. But there's a problem where psychopaths can take advantage of that situation. But as long as there's less than... it's something like... Because they've done this with computers, actually, where they simulate psychopaths, essentially. As long as there's less than 5% of psychopaths in population, the population is fairly stable and it's fine. But as Nietzsche pointed out, there's no reason to not be a psychopath. And that destroys the entire foundation of morality. Whereas
Peterson points out why it's bad to be a psychopath. Other people kill you.
If they catch you.
Yes.
Yes. But if you're... Or what about a nihilist? You just lounge off of others. Well, they could kill you too, but who cares? So people kill you if you're a psychopath.
Yeah.
Who cares? Why is being killed bad? You can nihilistically destroy society without a care in the world if you want.
How
if
many
you don't
true
have
nihilists are there, though, of the extent they don't care about getting killed?
So in the Brothers Dostoevsky, Ivan Fedorovich talks about how he's an educated guy, he's very smart, and he is an atheist, and he's realized that there's no point to anything, everything's meaningless, because you can very clearly see there is no God, there is no meaning, you can't find meaning under a microscope, you can't see it anywhere. Yeah. And he's telling a monk about this, and he says to the monk, but the problem is, I keep having this nagging feeling at the back of my head that I still care for some reason. And so I can't completely discount your God and your everything. And the monk smiles and says, and that is faith. And that is what all humans have within us. And that feeling is the foundation of faith. Yeah. Because humans, like you said, true nihilists are very rare. And Jordan Peterson gave an example of this ages ago, which is you just pinch a nihilist until they say stop, and you say, why?
Yeah.
And that's what Sam Harris's foundation is on as well.
Yeah.
Which is avoid hell. So it isn't a bad foundation, but the question is still... So Sam Harris's foundation is very good, avoid pain, right? Because humans have a desire to avoid pain. But the question is why? Why should we care? So beneath Sam Harris's foundation, it's still based on it's not based ground up. It's based on the human experience of pain, which you can ignore if you choose to. So there is still, and that's what suicide is often.
Yeah.
So there is still...
Well, no, isn't suicide escape from pain?
Yes, but you could say that the pain is hampering your ability to function, and therefore eliminating the pain would just allow you to ignore the pain without having to put the exerting effort into it. I think you could conceptualize it like that, potentially.
I don't know. I think it's escape and not ignorance.
Well, not escape, but the pain is not something you can control because of chemicals in your brain, let's say. Yeah. So therefore, you could control your brain by killing yourself. Yeah. Or you could take, like, morphine.
Yeah. And I still see that as escape, even in your control. It's controlled escape.
Right, but if there's no option... I think that escaping bad situations does not make those bad situations beyond your control, does not necessarily make those bad situations meaningful. But I'm not certain about that. but caring about the bad situation is founded upon the idea that your pain matters. And that right there, so pain matters. We could let's say I'm wrong and we'll take yours. Pain matters.
Yes.
But then the fact that pain matters is a foundation of faith. So that isn't ground up. So you could say that Sam Harris has invented the devil, and that's the foundation of his faith.
It's an interesting form of religion that there's no God, but there is a devil.
Yeah. It's actually fairly solid if you think about it. But I think even if you can't ignore pain, can you dismiss pain? And is the avoidance... I don't think...
Well, one of the dismissals of pain is a chemical reaction in your brain.
Yeah.
And so you
take morphine.
Yeah, and...
You change the chemical reaction.
Yes. And there are people who physically can't feel pain through damage to their nerves. But then there's, again, along the lines of emotional pain and being in bad situations, those things. And so, again, go back to morphine. But then morphine only lasts so long.
Yeah. You just take more and more and more, and then you die.
Yeah.
But who cares? Because life was meaningless anyways. But it's kind of weird. A meaningless life is suffering, right? But what does that mean? Why are you suffering if it's meaningless? And that's what Camus said, I think, to a degree, was, look, you can do anything. Go for it. So
that's his radical freedom, right?
No, that was...
Sartre. Yeah, no. Camus' Life's Absurd.
Life is absurd, yeah. Camus was Sisyphus must be happy. Yeah. But so the interesting thing about God is it's unassailable. You can say God is pain, but God is giving you, that's still a meaning. Or God is a movement towards something greater. God is the infinite sandwich.
Even on the case of taking morphine, you're taking that morphine even to extent for a reason, for oblivion.
Yeah.
You're seeking out oblivion.
But it is interesting that you can...
I think pain is a very, very hard part of the human condition to escape.
It's also very hard to dismiss.
Yeah.
And that's probably...
Jordan Peterson talks about a lot. Life is pain. Life is suffering. He is very vehement about that.
It does give Sam Harris credit that he has chosen something inescapable. But I don't know if making life about harm reduction will make people actually have meaning, and it won't just make them suffer more.
Yeah, well, I don't agree with that approach of...
Well, he does more. He constructs a heaven based on the opposite of hell, essentially.
Yeah.
So he goes beyond that. And one thing you could do is you could say, well, then to avoid pain, you must construct resilience.
Yeah.
And constructing resilience is a motion, not an end goal. It's a path, and that in itself is generative of meaning.
Well, so one of the things with pain is, have we talked about the men's groups?
Maybe.
All right. What do you think a men's group is?
A sexist place for a bunch of sexists to sit around and be sexist. I think, or potentially a bastion, a last holdout of what bars used to be.
Maybe, I don't know. I've never.
A final stand to keep women out.
So, to extend the men's group that I attend, it's so when I originally thought about them, and it's that I think a lot of people have a conception about them, which is it's men with problems basically go there,
right? And
they're usually men who have trouble connecting with other men.
Yes,
that's a very large amount of the people go to men's groups, and so
a sort of group therapy thing.
Yeah, except there's no therapist; it's just all of them talking. Actually, a huge part of
that's how group therapy works.
Yeah, a huge part of it is just sitting around and hanging out and having a slight amount of structure to what you're going to talk about. And again, one of my conceptions of our preconceptions is that people talking about the misery in their life, and it's like a big misery fest.
Yeah.
And that sounds very self-destructive. And that's sort of like, oh, let's just talk about what's miserable. But there's one step difference, and it's the step that makes it all work, which is it's not talking about what's wrong. It's talking about how to fix what's wrong. And that's the main key focus. There's a huge part to the Y-act, which is, if I was to do work tonight, it would be on this. And it's like, I just have like a huge amount of problems with my wife. So if I was to go work on something tonight, I was work on my relationship with my wife. And so then you go through basically therapy of talking about the problems. And then everyone listens to what you say. And while you're talking it out, you can think about it. And then you can be offered advice. And then there's one more step, which is, okay, so now what are you going to do about it? And we're going to hold you accountable to it.
So the question with that, Mark Manson, at the end of last year, released a very interesting article. It's called The Point is to Stop.
Yeah.
And in it, he talked about how self-help can become an addiction in and of itself. And how the idea of self-help is that you solve your problems and then you get on with your life.
Yeah.
And he ended it by saying, and so the point is to stop, so I'm done. I'm making all my stuff free and I'm not doing self-help stuff anymore. And so that's what he did. He doesn't write self-help stuff anymore.
Yeah.
He said, I wrote this to help get through my problems. I'm done with my problems. I'm done.
Well,
and so when I apply that to the men's group, my question is, when your problems are solved, you don't want to abandon these, hopefully, friends, I would assume.
Yeah.
So what happens? What do you do then?
Well,
because you don't want to invent problems so you can go to be with your friends.
When you're talking about the things, you have a list of priorities. And one thing that we've even done there, and I think it's partly even my influence, of sometimes I don't have any problems. Because I went there with a very small list of problems, and they're nowhere near as big as a lot of other people's problems. And we've gone through them once, and I don't need to keep harping on about them. I need to work on that. And so I won't go to the same problem again. And so sometimes, if I was to work on something, I just talk about interesting concept for a few moments, and I'm also there to talk with other people and give them advice. Or sometimes we'll say, yeah, there's nothing wrong with me right now. There's no work I need to do.
So do you remember
And I actually think that's an important part of it is you can say, yeah, no, there's no work I need to do.
Do you remember in high school, I don't know if you guys did this, but there was, I forget what it was called. It was called something like Cry Day or something, or the Day of Tears, and my art teacher was really against the idea of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't understand him back then, and I kind of wish I could take the art class again, because everyone in the school, including the other teachers, kind of thought he was crazy.
Yeah.
But the more I learn, the more time goes on, it's like he was the most sane person in that whole school.
Yeah.
He called the organizers of the place vampires.
Yeah.
He said these are a bunch of vampires just
well, that's why I was
getting
worried
sustenance from
that
children.
the men's group would be. That was why I was kind of concerned it would be like that.
Because what they do is they put you into groups where you can talk about your problems.
Yeah.
But they sort of tease out the idea of problems to the point where you can take a niggle in your life or a concern or a worry, and being in that space makes you bring it to the forefront, and that in itself is damaging because then you're just playing off of emotional trauma to bond with a group. So you're trauma bonding essentially on purpose. And that's kind of messed up. And they do a bunch of these exercises to make you talk about like the worst things in your life and the privileges you've had and the benefits some people have had and the others haven't.
Challenge Day. And
who hasn't had parents and who didn't have someone there for them. And so
I'll tell you the defense the men's group has against that. So there is the accountabilities. And if you come back and said, yeah, I did it. Like, I was accountable to this. Everyone, like, good job, you did great. And a lot of the time, so one of the starts to it is, how are you feeling right now? What's the low point and the high point? And there's equal emphasis on both. And so a lot of the time in it, it's celebrating the wins. Like, a very big part of it is saying, this is a good part of my life right now.
Right.
And so it balances it. So it a lot of it, this one anyways, is trying to focus on the wins.
My issue with the wins thing is then you have to be looking for the difference. you have to be looking for the success amid the failure, and therefore you have to be looking for the failure. So what's a win? What's a win? What's a win?
Well, a win could just be I had a really nice time at dinner.
Right, but then you have to say, what about the rest of your day? Why wasn't that the time you brought up?
Well, it's the highlight, because people focus highlight.
Right, but if you're constantly thinking about highlights, then you're putting everything else in the dimmer light, right?
I don't think people are obsessive like that.
Well, I am, so...
Well, maybe it won't work for you, because...
that sort of thing destroys me, like, be grateful, that sort of thing, it, like, wrecks me.
Yeah, well...
Makes me miserable.
I don't think the structure works for everyone as well, because
yes.
people are different. And, again, like, a part of it is one guy gets a lot of benefit from it, and it's very obvious, and his life, he talks about how it's improving, and can't go into detail because confidentiality in it. But another guy is sort of just there, and he's like, yeah, I don't have anything right now. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you say, I don't have anything, then, you're not contributing, why aren't you? You can't bond as efficiently if you're not contributing.
If he doesn't have anything, he doesn't have anything. It's fine.
Okay, so New Year's, like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Our dad had this fire where you write stuff, and he did this with the men's group as well, I believe.
That was a different men's group.
Where you write on a piece of wood something you want to get rid of, and then you burn it.
Yeah, that's the Warriors. This is Mankind Project. The Mankind Project, I think, is a lot more sane than the Samurai Brotherhood.
So if you don't write anything on the piece of wood, you aren't a part of the group properly, right? Because, he said, like, you've got to write something on the wood to burn.
Yeah.
So that becomes... I'm not saying that people will exclude you. I'm saying you're not including yourself. If you're hanging out with your friends, and all of them are drinking and you're not, you have put a wall between yourself and them. If everyone's dancing and you are not, you've put a wall between yourself and them. These are little things, and sometimes, like with drink, it's like, whatever, okay, we'll be fine. Or with dancing, even, it can be like, we're okay. But you are creating a distance all the same. And, that's how a cult operates as well.
Yeah.
It's the same as friendship.
Cults are friendship. Cameron, 2020.
Well, it's an abuse of the mechanism that allows for friendship, or group cohesion, which is saying, we are doing this thing, join in this thing. But if this thing is destructive to you, and they're saying, do it, like, I don't want to write on this piece of wood and burn it. Yeah. But you get the people like, Kyle, come on, what's your thing? What's your thing? And so, so when this guy says, I don't have anything, he's the guy that doesn't contribute. He's the guy that doesn't...
Well, I don't see it as that. He's...
Right, so what about him? From his point of view, he isn't the one...
His life is pretty solid and he can just be there to give advice.
And why is he there?
Because sometimes he needs it. And he also just wants to be with a group of men. Because I think the most important part of a men's group is actually socializing with other men. So it gives you... And the structure of it is to give you purpose to something to do.
That's my next question. Why don't you guys, like, play pool or video games or something? Like, why isn't it the men's video game club or the men's book club or the...
I think it's just structurally because having the opportunity... Like, I think it's two parts. So one part is a space for men just to be men.
Yeah.
But also for them to purely talk about their problems if they need to. And it's a focus on that.
Yeah, so it is a focus on problems then.
Yeah, so yes. It is a group therapy focus, but it's also for men.
And why aren't women allowed in?
Because no girls around, they're icky.
Right, but actually, why aren't women allowed in?
Because men act differently around women.
Yes. I think this is really interesting.
Men act quite differently around women. And as I said at the beginning, this is like most men that are in men's groups are men's with no male friends. And a lot of cases, they basically worship women or are obsessed with female approval, which is what I mean by worship.
And they act like women.
Yeah.
And by that I mean, I'm not saying they're like weird fairy people. I mean, they're careful with their words and not to swear or to offend, because that is a much more feminine thing. Mm-hmm. And so men in places with women in them will be afraid to speak up about certain issues. And with it's only men, they're much more comfortable speaking up about them.
Yeah.
However, no, I actually don't know. You take the men who are afraid to speak up around women, put them all together. I assume some of them still become the women of the group until they get better, essentially. Until they get used to actually speaking as men do. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to say?
I think so, yeah.
They become the ones that are like, how could you say that? Like the male feminist is what I'm going for, I guess.
So there's an agreement upon going into this, which is... I've
got an example that maybe you can springboard off of.
Okay, but there's agreement going into this, which is basically you can say anything.
Yeah.
And you will not be, like, unless it's illegal or something, but you will not be ridiculed for it, except if ridicule is appropriate, as like jokingly, like being, haha, punch to the shoulder.
Well, the thing about Canada is what's legal to say in the privacy of your own home is getting smaller and smaller as well. Yeah. So that's kind of... So, an example maybe you can springboard off of. Mm-hmm. So, Trump was with his friends.
Yeah.
They're hanging out. And he was talking about... They were talking about dating.
Yeah.
And Trump was saying, you do this for a woman, you do this, you can do whatever you want. You can grab them by the pussy. Mm-hmm. And his friends like, they let you do that? He's like, yeah, they do. Mm-hmm. That got out.
Yeah.
And that became an entire... Trump is the most sexist president ever.
Yeah.
That's a horrible thing. That's a horrible thing. What... I can forgive, let's say, all the women for thinking this. Mm-hmm. Potentially. Maybe. That's what men do when they're alone. They talk... Like, that's all men.
Yeah.
90%, let's say.
Yeah, for those of you out there who don't know, when there's just several men alone together in a room, they just talk about...
They talk about dating from a male perspective, not a female perspective. Mm-hmm. And they talk about male things from a male perspective, or just things from a male perspective. And so the defense was locker room talk.
Yeah.
And that was trod down upon by a lot of the media and the people with something to gain by denigrating Trump. But all the men denigrating Trump, I would be very surprised if they hadn't said similar or worse in the privacy of their own homes.
Yeah.
And I think what most people have said in general about like all this cancel that, people have said much worse things in the privacy of their own homes.
Yeah.
About all sorts of topics, not just women, all sorts of things. And they say, well, yeah, but we know what we're doing. We're just joking around and hanging out.
Yeah.
This was a private conversation that Trump was having. It was recorded from the outside.
Yeah.
This is him with his friends in the privacy of his trailer or whatever it was. Even if it was recorded by one of his friends, that's not for you to see, to be involved with. People can... So the little, it's okay when I do it experiences you have, those apply to everyone.
Yeah.
It can't be one rule for one person and one for another. So with the men's group, I wonder... Mm-hmm. You say there's no women, so men can have time for men. And so you can maybe... Do you know if you... That's probably not right to ask. How to phrase it differently. Would it be a place for male feminists to come and, like, de-radicalize?
Definitely.
Or nice guys to come and de-radicalize?
Very much. That is very much the design. Like, the Mankind Project and Samurai Brotherhood are both very focused on de-radicalizing nice guys. Like, through their questions, through their programming, even something about having actually just a group of men with no women, and they're all men who are nice guys to an extent, and they know that problem. If you put them in a room together, it will damage their identity as nice guys.
Yeah, because they have to be jocular with one another.
Yes.
And that destroys the nice guy thing, and that gives you confidence when you realize the world doesn't end.
Yeah, and then one will say something like, oh, I have this problem with my girlfriend. Yeah, like I'm always trying to do these things for her, and she's just always gets very annoyed at it.
And you're like, hey, what you doing?
Well, that's even psychology based. So it is Mankind's based in kindness. I think Samurai Brotherhood's more jocular. But the Mankind would be, has that ever worked for you? Well, no, but this and this. Has that ever worked for you? No. So what can you change?
So, this is making me think. I've been thinking about this for a while. I think we might have talked about it ages ago, but I'm not sure. Because I watched this video of an Australian bar that women were trying to get into. Like a men's only bar. So there is a reproductive strategy here. So, women will only want to date men who have contributed something to the success of the species. And that just makes sense because... that's a person that is good to be around, and you'll have good children and strong and healthy, and everyone will be happy, and you'll be rich. you'll be so a man who's contributed is a rich man.
Yeah.
So that's what women look for, and that's fine. That's what makes humans get better instead of worse. Things that are not obviously good are things women will not be attracted to because those are risks. You're not going to gamble on the man unless you really believe in him.
Yeah.
So, men who invent something that has no foreseeable use are shunned by women. These men have come to be known as nerds. So, Dungeons and Dragons, video games, tabletop wargaming, high heels, tights, wigs, makeup, tight pants. These are things men developed for men, and women rejected the men for doing so. And then it turned out that these things were actually beneficial to society in some way. And women said, hey, we want a piece of that. And then they moved into the space. That was a men's only space, destroying the benefits of a men's only space, saying you can't do what you're doing here now because that's sexist and that's cruel and that's whatever. You have to be nicer. You have to talk about your emotions. So the men leave and they create the next thing. And women, so men are constantly exploring territory and women are constantly conquering the new territory men have settled for themselves. You could say that's how the Wild West worked, was men went out and then women took over the towns that the men...
started hating them over the head with wooden spoons.
Yeah, and so the men left again, and that's how progress happens.
Yeah.
Men running away from women and women taking everything the men make in the process to get away.
Yeah. Well, that's even... I was watching Peaky Blinders.
Yeah.
And so the main character is absolute badass of it. I don't know if you've seen...
I've seen a few episodes and it's really good.
Yeah, like I was thinking you'd enjoy it because it's British gangsters. So have you seen the first ones?
The first...
Like first episodes or just...
No, I've seen like the first 4 episodes or something.
Yeah, so there's this whole point where the main character is talking to his aunt, I think. It's like, well, you men were away at the war. We were running these business doing it. It's like, yeah, but I'm back now. And he's just like, so like, yeah, you ran it for us, but we're back now. We're going to run it.
So, in Canada, there are no men's shelters.
There was one.
Well, there was a guy in Manitoba, I think, who ran a few.
Yeah, there's one in Yukon as well at one point.
Oh. This guy in Manitoba ran a few, and he was harassed so much for it, he ended up committing suicide.
Yeah.
And the whole thing shut down.
Yeah, his vice president also committed suicide.
So the Boy Scouts now have to take girls. The YMCA now has to take women. Mm-hmm. I wonder if the men's group is about talking and solving problems, men's problems.
Yeah. Because
that's the only thing you can get away with. And that's why I asked, why aren't you guys playing pool? Why aren't you guys playing video games? Why can't you have the video games club, no girls allowed?
Well, you see, even more so with Samurai Brotherhood, I was thinking. Because it is designed in such a way that I don't think women would ever want to go to Samurai Brotherhood. Like, maybe a few wackos, but, like, they dance around fire shirtless is one of the things they actually do. And they do the fire jumping where, like, two even starts kind of taking off your pants and jumping over fires. Like, some Samurai Brotherhoods do that. And they, like, out in the woods, if you're late or you're trying to be socially manipulative, the guy who's in charge punishes you and, like, makes you do physical exercise. And, like, it's very much like, oh, you have to be a man, like, shirtless wrestling in the mud sort of thing. Like, Samurai Brotherhood is very focused on that, from what I understand.
So the interesting thing about that, and in general, is the vanguard of the women invasion tends to be people, actually like my friend who said, do neutrinos feel lonely?
Yeah.
She is a woman more at home in men's spaces than women's spaces.
Yeah.
But she doesn't try to change the men's space.
Yeah, one of the boys.
Yes. And that is a very important, like a tomboy.
Yeah.
That is a very important thing. Because she can so, I don't know if this is a cry to all women over the past, like, 40,000 years. It's a bit late. Maybe the past 2.3 million years. You can come into men's only spaces, but you have to be a man. Like, And I don't mean you have to be trans or anything. No, I just mean you have to follow the culture.
Yeah.
You have to...
Actually, even a lot of trans people aren't a man. Like, some are, definitely. But others aren't at all.
Well, the thing... This is something, actually, I've noticed. When you see that the greatest map designer for D&D is a woman, and you see that two of the most famous filmmakers are women.
And one of the best comic book writers and drawers was a woman.
They're trans. The comic book, I think, is Gail Simone, possibly.
Yeah,
and
she's not trans.
She's not trans. But, well, with writers, women tend to be better writers anyways.
Well, Gail Simone's also an interesting case.
Well, didn't she become, like, super woke recently or something?
I don't know about that, but basically, so when she started, she's like, alright, I'm going to be comic book writer and drawer. So are men interested in? And so she found out what they're interested in. Then she went and did all that stuff. So like explosions. Okay, I like explosions. So she basically took an approach of, what do men like? Alright, I'm going to study all those in depth.
That's like Emily Rada. She went, what do little boys... Little boys aren't reading. What do little boys like? They like video games. What if a book was a video game? And so she made the Deltora Quest.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I don't think she... Her end result was good, but I don't think her methods made any sense whatsoever. Like, I'm gonna make this book a video game. But what? Do you not see Harry Potter? Like, that's... Everyone loves Harry Potter. That's not a video game at all. But yeah, you can... So... But you can enter men's spaces, but you gotta spit and swear and do everything else that the men do. And most women aren't going to like that, and that's fine. Women have plenty of women's faces.
Like, Terry Pratchett's book, Monsters Regiment, actually addressed that greatly, where there's the regiment...
It's all women who are...
pretending to be men.
Yeah, but they are being men.
Yeah.
They're manly women.
Yes.
The other thing is... which is kind of an interesting part, is... this might be what feminists call male fragility or something. I'm not sure. I don't know what they're talking about. But women, when they take something, men don't want it back. Mm-hmm. Like high heels.
Yeah.
And, tight pants, that's been an ongoing war.
Yeah.
But...
even the crop top, like...
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I have a friend on Facebook, he's a guy I've known for a while, and he's constantly raving about how good crop tops look on men. And he is not a guy who should wear a crop top. Like, no offense to him, but he's got the belly like he used to have, so he's got the belly now. And he'll post pictures of himself with a crop top, and even when he shows pictures of men with abs and like the looks for crop tops, no.
I know this guy. He's I don't know if I've ever even met him, but he's basically family of a fairly close friend of mine. Yeah. So I always see pictures of him and hear them talking to him on the phone and that sort of thing. And he's this he's like this muscular, really good looking guy, very muscular. And he wears makeup and crop tops and stuff like that. Yeah. But he doesn't, like, you know, James Charles, he does makeup.
Yeah.
But it looks kind of feminine. This guy doesn't do that. It's to enhance male features so he'll make like his jaw look more and rugged and his, like, he doesn't do fake stubble, but he like definition of his jaw and makes his eyes stand out, so he's got this piercing blue gaze, and so he does makeup like that. And he wears these crop tops and these like really low cut shirts that show off his pecs and his abs and that sort of thing. Yeah. I'm not a fan of the style personally, but you can kind of, you're like, fair enough. But it does take... I do think it helps that he is so fit and good looking. And apparently at one point, for most of his life, he was actually quite overweight. And so it's actually quite the achievement. Yeah. Like, it's him showing off, like, hey, look what I did. Yeah. Which is really good for him. Or maybe he was anorexic. It was one or the other. But he overcame anorexia and became fit. Because you don't have a bunch of muscles if you're an anorexic.
No.
So, yeah, I'm curious about the men's club, if that's an excuse.
And very well could, like, the no girls allowed, like that thing in the bar, is very important.
The other aspect of the men's club, men's group.
Yeah.
Maybe if they called it a club, well, that's the thing. If they called it a club, I would like it more, I think.
Yeah, no, I think calling it a men's group is a defense. It's basically a Trojan horse of it sounds like a women's thing. Yeah. Like, men's group sounds very womanly.
Well, it does not so much. It sounds like a therapy session. Yeah. And I don't want to go to therapy. Yeah. But it also sounds like it is mostly therapy, so that's kind of another strike against it for me. But the other question is, why not get together with a bunch of your friends and just hang out around a campfire? And like you said a lot of people don't have male friends necessarily.
It's the first step to figuring out how to be able to do that. And that the Samurai Brotherhood, like I said, I haven't been to that, but that's closer to hanging out around a campfire to extent. But they also take like a little hardcore extreme of like the tribalism and having a sword and presenting it to someone, and so it's more of a ceremonial thing.
Yeah.
It's
bonding.
Yeah.
And cultism.
Yeah.
But that's like the Freemasons, they had all sorts of crazy cult stuff too.
Yeah.
It's bonding.
But
fraternities and colleges.
Yeah,
too,
I think that this is basically the men's group is to help people actually be able to go and do that. And even a thing that can spawn from as men's group. So they go there and it helps them basically adjust to being around men. Then people in the men's group's like, do you want to hang out?
Yeah.
And so you can just play video games with someone in the men's group.
Yeah, and that's what the YMCA was for.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a shame that sort of fell apart a little.
Yeah, so I think it's like the main thing I see it as is to teach men not to be pussies.
And so why do you go there? You want to learn not to be a pussy? Nothing wrong with that.
I go there because I'm an emotional vampire. No.
Well, if that's your reason, I mean, that's a reason. Not a good one, but...
No, because of the pandemic, I lost some socializing skills. And so it was an opportunity to gain some back. And it's just a club that I can kind of go to. And sometimes we talk about things that aren't people's problems. We just talk about something deeper, an interesting concept. And I kind of want to be a balancing force to our dad when he's there. And also to basically everyone else. Because I know a lot of things to an extent. And I think about a lot of stuff. And so I see that I have this knowledge and these ideas, even though I'm fairly young, that I can share with people. And so...
Be very careful with not making that a duty.
I don't at all.
Like, don't think you have to be the balancing force.
Yeah, I don't. I'm doing it because I want to do it.
Yes. But you did mention that, and I'm not... Mm-hmm. I'm glad you did mention it, and I'm not going...
I only show up there half the time.
No, you don't have to defend. It's okay. It's okay. It's I know exactly the situation where you are honest about a thing, but there's also a bunch of half-formed things about it. And someone latches on to the thing you're unsurest about and says, you monster, what do you do?
Yeah.
So I'm not doing that, or I'm not trying to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm advising caution because becoming the savior, becoming the mother, so what codependency is, so where the term originated was alcoholics have a massive problem with alcoholism.
Yeah.
A codependent isn't someone who drinks alcohol or in excess. There's someone whose existence is based around the fact that they take care of an alcoholic. They're the balancing force to the alcoholic. They're the one who is always trying to help them. They're the one that they pick up the pieces after the alcoholic makes the mess. And what was found is they're as addicted to alcohol as the alcoholic, but they're not the ones consuming it. And so to that group, don't become codependent to the group or our dad, basically, I guess is the takeaway of... So what the codependent would do is, well, the alcoholic is always like throwing up, so I'm the one that cleans up after them. The alcoholic is going to rage if I'm not there to be the calming, wise voice. And so you become addicted to the harm of others. So the inventor of codependency, the woman who came up with it, her husband was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
He started going to Alcoholics Anonymous, and he actually got better.
And then she broke up with him?
She started getting really antsy and like dragging him back down into his alcoholism. And she talked about this. Like, I was like, he was ruining my life getting better. So I was like...
There's some parts in Jordan Peterson's book that talk about that.
And it's not that obvious. It's not like she's like, hey, you need to drink.
Yeah.
It was more like, oh, you don't need to go to that group. Come on, I can take care of you. I'm the one. Yeah. Like, that sort of thing. Like, why do you care more about the group than me? Yeah. Why can't I be the one that helps you through it? Why do I tell you not to drink, but then you go to this group and they tell you not to drink and you listen to them but not me? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's not obvious like, here, drink this. You're
Yeah.
And so, but the interesting thing is, this woman, she's the one that discovered this term. And so she started going to Alcoholics Anonymous. And Alcoholics Anonymous now has a program where they try to get your spouse in. Because it's like, your spouse is as big a problem as you are.
So when I said balancing force, I was like, the like, counsel. Like, I don't want to be all, like, puffed up, but, like, trying to be, like, Gandalf or a wise man, even though I'm quite young.
So how about let's put it a different way. You feel like you have something to contribute.
Yes.
And you enjoy helping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
How about that?
Yeah.
Rather than making our dad the enemy that you're counterbalancing, or the group the enemy that you're counterbalancing, or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a better way of putting it.
Or not the enemy, but the burden. Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, and that might not be fully accurate or not. I don't know, but something to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm. Well, it made me think about when we were talking about the alcoholic thing. Is one of the things of the evil mother is she has a useless son, let's say, and she says, "Don't worry, I'll take care of you for the rest of your life. You don't have to ever work."
It destroys the son.
Well, so she tells him that, and so then he becomes resentful. He lives in the basement. He never showers. And he thinks about the vengeance he'll reap upon the world and how it's basically abandoned him and several other horrible things. And then the mother gets the wonderful benefit of going to her friends and reaping the delicious sympathy of she has to take care of her son, lives in her basement, and she's such a saint having to take care of this boy. And
no, that's Munchausen by proxy, I think it's called. Yeah, that's I mean, it's called in the science sense, so they can feel good about themselves. It's been documented for forever in just myth and story and human experience. Yeah. And the other thing is, it's not kind to the son at all.
No.
Protecting someone isn't kind to them. I was thinking about this, actually. Would you rather... Our mom didn't agree with me exactly, but it's kind of a hard thing to talk to your parents about this question, so it's tricky. But she did bring an example of our grandparents, so it kind of worked. But I said that I think the best... not the best father. A better father than one who is there is a pillar of strength, even if they're not there. So the father that's always off, let's say, I don't know, he's a crab fisherman.
Yeah.
You never see him except when he comes in once a month by the docks, something like that. But he is the pillar, the foundation of. So he is this legendary figure to you, off there somewhere. My argument is that is a better father than a father who is there but is weak.
Okay. Yeah. So, I can partly agree with that. But a better father than both those
is a strong father who's there.
Yeah. Because one of the things about a father, which I can't remember who was talking about this, but it's this incredibly interesting thing where, so dad will roughhouse with the kids, and mom doesn't like that because they could get hurt. And then one of them does get hurt, like a daughter hits son, and they hurt and there's crying. And so mom's solution is you never roughhouse again. And so dad gets upset about that because he can't play with the kids, and the kids don't get roughhouse and they're upset about it. What's better is dad saying, no, I told the daughter, don't hit son like that, or the playing stops. So they learn they have to not be rough. And we can continue roughhousing, but there's this rule. We've established order to this thing.
You stop the moment something happens. Yeah.
Yeah, and so dad's basically there to go, sure, you can climb that tree, and I'll be here to catch you. Whereas mom would have, where her way is, you can never climb that tree. And then she's like, he'll fall and get hurt, and then he falls and get hurt, and she's vindicated, and then can't climb the tree. Whereas dad's, well, he fell and he catches you. Or if he didn't catch you, well, what did you do wrong?
Well, I think, let's not demonize the mother either.
No.
But that's
the extreme of the mother.
That is the good force of the natural good force of the father balancing against the natural evil force of the mother.
Yeah.
There are other circumstances where the natural good force of the mother balances against the natural evil force of the father. So the father yelling at his kid for making a simple mistake, and the mother saying, look, he just cut his hand. He just needs to be comforted right now. That would be the reverse situation.
Yeah.
Or the father's just reaming up for being so stupid and dropping
the flashlight while he was trying to work on the car.
Or his bowl and like cutting his hand or something. But I think that there's been far too much emphasis on the presence of fathers rather than the strength of fathers. So it's like, oh, dad wasn't there. It's like, yeah, but was he a great man? I think that's more important. Because if you have... And why I think this is true It's very simple, actually. Take any shonen, okay?
Yeah.
What is the mother and what is the father? And I haven't really seen any of these, but I've seen the start of enough of them to know. The father is this hero who
went off and died.
or disappeared. Like Ash's dad, Silver.
Avatar and the Last Airbender. So they're raised by their grandmother, but their dad went off to fight the Fire Nation.
And what is the shonen mother? She's the woman, she's the perfect mother of perfect love because she's dead. She can never let them down.
That works in Avatar still.
But that is the...
Well, Sokka had to be a man because his dad's like, I'm going off, son, you have to be the man.
That is the mythological family, in a sense. So, Freud said, you cannot become a man until your father has died. And I agree with Freud. But I agree with Jung more. And this isn't something oh yeah, well, that's true. No, this is something I've thought about a lot. And I agree with Freud. Because if your father is alive, he is the one you defer to, and then you cannot stand on your own 2 feet. So what Jung said was, yes, that is true, but the death does not need to be physical. So essentially, the son can supersede the father, abandon the father, whatever you want to look at it, kill the father, metaphorically.
And then go into the belly of the whale to rescue him?
No, this would be different. This isn't...
Well, no, after he kills him, he then goes into the belly to rescue him.
The act of rescuing the father shows that they are no longer your father, I think. Does that make sense? So the fact that your father can't save themselves, but you can save them, shows that they are no longer your father.
Yeah.
They are another man that you are helping. So I think the act of saving your father from the belly of the whale could be considered killing your father. So you don't kill the father after, you kill them by rescuing them. Because a father's job is to rescue you.
Yeah. And
if you rescue them, they can no longer be your father. They haven't failed as a father necessarily, but they have lost the ability to be a father to you.
So, my thought on that, there's one point in the Wheel of Time, which is one of my favorite parts, and it's when Rand has basically gone completely insane, and he's on a tower, and he's on a balcony, and his dad basically comes out and is like, what have they done to you, son? And they just have a talk. And that's the first step to Rand regaining his sanity, is talking to his dad.
So Rand's not a man.
No.
Because but when Rand stands at the top of the
mountain,
Dragon Mountain, and does something,
expunges, he balances good and evil inside himself.
Then he no longer needs... I mean, when does he fight Tam? Is that after?
The
sword fight.
That was during, I think.
Okay. And does he lose?
Yes, until he uses the one power.
Yeah. Yeah, so he isn't a man because he loses to Tam there, right?
Yeah, so they're having a fight, and then he uses the one power, and he slightly scares Tam, but Tam's scared for his son, not himself.
But then when he stands on top of Dragon Mountain and he takes manhood into himself, he goes to the sky, which is the male aspect, and he you can do that, but no he I mean, to be fair to Rand as well, he's only like 24 or something. He's but
I think Rand is definitely a man after Dragon Mountain.
Yes, but not before, when Tam comes to him.
No.
But after the point where you've become a man, you become two men in a society working together. They do not become the person that protects you and guards you anymore. They're no longer the one who fights off the monsters under your bed.
Yeah.
They are now another man that you are fighting back the monsters outside the village together.
Yeah.
And it is only when you realize your parents aren't God that can occur.
Yeah.
And that's when their word doesn't matter, or their word matters to you as much as a random stranger's word.
Yeah.
And so that's why, and those are the thoughts that tie into Jung's idea, I think, that I agree with.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's in the stories, and that's in psychology, and you were talking. I'll tie it back to something because I wanted to talk more about it actually. The caduceus, whatever, and the double helix.
Yeah.
So there's a concept in alchemy, which is represented like this, which as above, so below, which you've probably heard of.
Yeah.
And it's the
That's a very interesting shape as well.
Unilateral hexagram.
It creates a very cool illusion. It spins in all four directions.
I can see that.
If you make a waveform, then actually it can rotate up, down, or side to side.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. So something interesting about alchemy, let's say, astrology, the teachings of the ancients, the teachings of all ages.
Yeah.
Not the book, but the actual teachings of all ages. The mythologies, the maps of meaning Jordan Peterson talks about, the collective consciousness Jung talks about.
Yeah.
Science comes up with all these answers, all these solutions. And what you'll notice if you know enough, and notice enough, in astrology especially, but in alchemy, astrology, everything else, this has already been done. I'm not saying that the exact things were understood, but ideas like quantum physics are represented in Buddhism. They're represented in the Kabbalah. The structure of the atom is represented in the Sephiroth.
Yeah.
The order of the planets, like Ptolemy's spheres. These are all the idea that string theory, everything's vibration, right? That is alchemy. That everything is made of vibrations. Everything's together. Yeah. That was Pythagoras. Pythagoras was the guy that said everything. So you were talking about this double helix, right?
Yeah.
That was already discovered before as well, the double helix.
So is all of science being us confirming our bias?
That wasn't what I was going with, but that could very well be, yeah. Because we are looking for what we've already seen.
Yeah.
We are looking for that aspect of the world we already understand. That is really interesting, yeah. Maybe. The direction I was going in was the as above, so below, which is the alchemical thing.
Yeah.
Which is that if you understand a system, you understand all of the systems. Because they're all the same. And I've thought of this before. I've noticed this, that life is a metaphor for itself. So you ever play enough Go that you start being able to apply it to conversation? You think, oh, I've got to come around here, but not too harshly. And if I head it off like this, then I can do this. And if I...
I don't try to socially engineer people.
No, this isn't social engineering. This is... Okay, I want to explain to you a difficult concept. I want to explain to you the eternal black hole, which I don't understand at all. But let's pretend I do understand it. So I need to place this piece here to get it started. And then you're going to counter here, I need to... I found that if you play enough Go, you start seeing everything as Go. You're driving and you're like, okay, if I do this, then this will signal to the person that I'm safe here, so they go here, so I do this.
I can sort of see that.
You can extrapolate out everything from a game of Go.
Yeah, no, people definitely do that. Like, yeah, I do that a bit with martial arts.
Yeah, you can say like, okay, so for my mental health, I need to be honest. It's like a true strike. Like, okay, when I punch, I need to punch with as little. I need to put no wasted effort.
Yeah.
And that's the same with, I'm not going to waste effort on things that don't matter. I'm going to keep I only have so much brain power to spare. I'm going to do, so you can make a metaphor of anything to anything else.
Yeah.
So life is kind of this massive metaphor for itself. And so there's this idea in alchemy that everything is a representation of everything else. So the alchemical process of turning things into gold, lead into gold, is the same as purifying yourself to be a pure person, a better person, to ascend back into the spiritual form. And so it's hard to tie in this example exactly, but alchemy is not magic. I talked about dark magic before, right? Where it's forcing your will upon the world. And so you say, well, turning lead into gold, that's forcing your will upon the world, right? Because you're you're casting a spell essentially to transmute something. But that's not what alchemists think. They think that you should not go outside the natural order. All things should be within the natural order. However, if you take a tomato seed and put it in a pot and add water, it will grow. You can grow this indoors where they would normally grow outside. You have not disrupted any natural order. You add water to a tomato seed and it will grow.
Man.
So you're simply stoking the embers to produce the fire that was already that system. So what the alchemists are saying is when you turn lead and gold, you are following Earth's own will. You're going along the natural processes of Earth. They aren't trying to enforce their own order on the world. They're trying to move things along as they should move.
With that description of magic, magic is evil.
Yeah, because you're actually just going...
Well, that description of magic is one of the things I despise most, is trying to force your will onto the world. I hate that so much. I really, really hate that. And when I find myself accidentally doing that, or other people are doing it, how dare you? And it's like forcing your will onto the world is very much the preferred pronoun of, like, don't make me do all the work.
Yeah. We need a White's Law. Any conversation that lasts long enough will eventually turn into one about transgenders.
I wasn't even thinking transgender. I was just thinking, like, that's just an example of forcing your will into the world that I came up with.
Yeah.
But there is other ones.
Yes.
I'm certain of it.
Well, there might be. It's possible. So I can give one.
I can also give another.
Mount Rushmore. They dynamited a mountain to create this thing. So that was forcing their will upon the world, potentially.
No, that was carving. Like, no, Gimli with...
Yes, well, I was going to give that as a counterexample.
Yes.
Because, if you have a cliff that you want to climb, and you get the dust out of the holds, you check to make sure the rock's not rotten, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Then you're doing the dwarven method of enhancing nature, following nature's path, resonance and harmony.
No.
If you tear moss from the holds to make a better grip, is that within nature?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. Because you're creating a path in nature that you can access and other animals can access.
But you're killing the moss.
Yes, but so will a deer coming along going...
So then how do you enforce your will upon the world in an evil way?
So that Mount Rushmore is we destroy it.
Right. You level the mountain.
Yes.
What if you level the mountain and put a highway in?
Could we put a highway around it?
It would be quicker drive to go through it.
Could we tunnel through it?
It's easier to blow up. Oh, if it's easier, then that's a hint right there. Yeah.
Do we need a highway there?
Well, do you need four presidents' heads carved into a mountain?
Okay, let's ignore need, because...
Well, on the other hand, you could argue yes for both.
But I like the sheer blowing it up. Another example of forcing your will on the world, though, is so...
Actually, interesting. 100,000 years from now, all humans are dead. What remains? One of the thoughts is Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
Because most buildings would crumble. Mm-hmm. Most statues would crumble. There's acid rain. There's earthquakes. There's tidal waves. Mount Rushmore is massive.
Yeah.
It's hard, solid rock. It's not rotten. It's not going to crumble. Yeah. It's in a geologically stable region of the world with almost no rain.
Yeah.
So it's not going to erode. There's not going to be an earthquake. Even if animals like land, it's massive.
Yeah.
So it might be one of the last things ever that humanity has left. It's kind of cool. But yeah, your other example.
Okay, so Karens.
Yes.
Are a great example of forcing their will upon the world. They see a world order that is a must, and so they go out their way to make that world order.
Give me a specific if you can.
All right, this isn't specifically Karens to extent, but so skateboarding, right? And you there's bars, like you can do grinds and stuff. And so you put skateboard stops everywhere, which are metal spikes, which are hideous. And so you're stopping the skateboarding, and skateboarders will just then jump down the staircase with their skateboards and do other things. But you're basically saying, you cannot skateboard here.
Right.
And I'm going to make everything worse for this one little thing.
Safety. Right, like because people could be skateboarding and crash into you or something.
But it's not safe, because they're going to do more stupid things in more dangerous areas because you've removed the safe area.
Right, but you could argue that a guardrail would encourage people to hang off the guardrail. On the other hand, you could make the argument that all harm reduction is evil. But then you'd say, well, I don't know, like a safety railing on the top of a building doesn't seem to be hurting anyone.
Another example of forcing your will upon the world or other people is trying to forcibly convert someone
to
anything.
Instead of showing them that your way is better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of torturing them into your path or something. If you... I saw a video where someone caught a mosquito and they put it in some sort of box full of lights and sound.
Yeah.
And the mosquito just went crazy. It was like...
Yeah. They capture the sound of the mosquito and then amplify it back into the mosquito.
Oh, is that what they did?
Yes.
What, my reaction... I didn't want to watch it very long. My reaction from that was, really made me think torture is awful on any level.
Yeah.
For any reason. You can take the most awful thing in existence and you shouldn't torture it. It was... Like, what kind of psychopath did that to that poor mosquito?
When mosquitoes go near me, I snap out and try to grab them, and I crush them utterly.
Yeah, I'll swat a mosquito. Yeah. Fine, I don't care. If I don't get a good night's sleep because there's a mosquito in my room making a noise, I'll go and I'll kill it. Sure, yeah. But torture is messed up.
Yeah,
it's really messed up. And
I think torture is forcing your will upon the world in a way.
So the black magic, making a deal with a demon, it was a shortcut. Yeah. So black magic would be getting gold rather than transmuting lead into gold. It would be stealing gold. It would be creating gold from nothing. Now, I personally really like that as a magical concept because I like superheroes, and I like superheroes without strings attached.
Yeah.
I think that's really fun. Like, I don't want them to say, well, Superman gets his power from the solar cell, and if you drain him of his... I don't like that. I like, this dude's invincible and can fly, and that's that.
But Superman can do that. That is what Superman is. No, what black magic there and the thing of Superman is, so you aren't Superman. And because that is what Superman is.
Yeah.
You aren't Superman. You're nothing like him. You're you. Superman's perfect.
Right, so becoming me...
You become Superman like Lex Luthor does.
Well, he's not...
Well, not even...
Lex Luthor's not doing anything...
No, Lex Luthor actually does it right, even to a certain extent, because he's being very smart. No, you become Superman...
Like Parasite would.
Yes.
Yeah, you take Superman's powers.
Or you just have a demon give it to you. You just have it happen to you. Or you could be like Batman, or Lex Luthor. So what does Batman do? Well, Batman's not Superman. So he's going to work out a lot, and he's going to make himself a mech suit, and so he's sort of like Superman. That's Batman. Lex Luthor, he sees Superman, and he's like, okay, I'm going to be I'm very smart, I'm going to work out a whole bunch. Still not like him. So, using my very big brain, I'm going to take some of his DNA, and I'm going to give myself his powers through this hard work.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go through these things. And so he doesn't...
I think if you take his DNA, that might be the dark magic.
It could be.
Because then that wasn't for you.
No. Yeah, no, that was dark magic.
To become Superman, you should go to Mars.
Yeah. Or Lex Luthor's mech suit.
Yeah. Yeah, but like John Carter, right? Mm-hmm. Any human can become Superman if they go to Mars.
Yeah.
And maybe that's...
Or you go to the planet with Batman and goes to the alternate universe where it has a red sun, and he meets the Superman up there who's Batman, and he's Superman on that planet because it's radiation.
Well,
supercharges him.
It's really interesting that Superman is a hero not because of his powers,
but who he is.
But who he is, yeah.
Now, there's this horrible scene in Peacemaker, and I think a lot of people have come away from it with the wrong message, and actually they even addressed that in The World Made of Cardboard, where that British superhero, like, everyone's liking him, they're liking the killing he's doing. But, so I'm seeing Peacemaker is John Cena walking out of his home, and there's this old man there, and they're saying, you suck, basically, to Peacemaker. And Peacemaker's like, what? Batman's got a whole bunch, was the thing of supervillains?
Like a rogues gallery?
Yeah, he's basically saying Batman has all these different villains. And then Peacemaker's like, Batman's an idiot. I kill my villains. That's why I don't have a gallery of villains. And it's like, Batman's probably killed more people by, like, letting them escape. And so there's that argument made against Batman, which is Batman's letting these people escape and he's doing things. But the thing about Batman is some people are like, oh, he has this code, he has this set of rules that he doesn't kill. But there's a little bit more. Basically, all of Batman's villains are going to Arkham Asylum. And people see Arkham Asylum as a prison. It's not a prison, it's an asylum. These people are insane. And within the court of law in the United States of America, you can plead insanity in a court. And so following that, Batman is superseding some laws by being a vigilante, except in the cases where, like, Gotham accepts him as the hero. But he is not the judge. Batman is the police officer. He's making the arrests. He's beating them up. He's tying them up. He's stopping them. Then the law will now decide the fate of the villain. Even in year one, where there's a bunch of corrupt politicians, he breaks into their meeting, beats up the corrupt politicians, steals a whole bunch of paperwork from them, and gives all this proof to the police. And then the police are corrupt in year one. And so he assists Gordon in clearing out the corrupt police, and then Gordon gets rid of all the corrupt politicians.
They have a Blackrock Penitentiary as well, right?
Yes, and that's the prison.
Where Bane and the crocodile guy goes.
Yes, Killer Croc.
Killer Croc, yeah. I think Killer Croc...
No, Killer Croc sometimes goes there.
Yeah.
It goes back and forth depending on what he pleads in his case.
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing with... I think you've actually defined the good and bad magic there. Dark magic is when you say the ends justify the means.
Yeah.
So Batman is if Batman killed people because it would prevent deaths in the future. I think Batman goes too far. If someone accidentally dies, fair enough. But Batman will risk his own life to save, like, Deadshot or something.
Yeah, well, he's saving everyone he can.
Yeah. Which I think is really where you should criticize him, if anywhere. Because Batman's risking his own life to save horrible murderers.
Yeah.
Which is very different from, I've caught the guy, I'm not going to execute him in cold blood or something. And so, if you said, well, if I execute him in cold blood, then that makes... Now, why Batman does that is because he doesn't trust himself.
Yeah.
Because he knows it would be so easy to just, oh, well, there was nothing I could do. There was a fight. So that's why Batman refuses to flat out kill. Because he could say...
That's why he's obsessed even with saving everyone he can.
Yeah, because he's like, well, I shouldn't be expected to risk my life to save Deadshot from falling off that building. But I'll always have this doubt inside of me that maybe I just let him fall to get rid of him.
Well, there's that case in, I think it's Dark Knight, when Batman's the old man, and he's, like, Batman's been gone for ages, and he's fighting the Joker in the sewers. And the Joker is basically gave him an ultimatum of, like, kill me or I'll kill this person. And old man Batman pulls up the gun and shoots Joker in the head. And in that case there, if he hadn't shot Joker and killed him, Joker would have killed someone else. And then Batman says, I can't believe I was ever so weak. It's not him saying, can't believe I never went and killed anyone. It's like, in this situation right here, I had to kill Joker to do the right thing to save this person.
Because there was no other way to save him.
Yeah, in the other case, Batman would probably do some crazy thing like try to stop Joker's heart, then deflip him with his lightning gauntlets to get him back up again from that whole scene.
Yeah.
And so he would do something incredibly stupid instead of just killing the person.
But even in that case where he shot Joker,
yeah,
he could always say there was another way available. And by doing this to Joker now, I've opened the door that, well, it's always easier to kill the villain to stop the problem than to come up with another solution. Now, so even then, I would say that might not be for Batman, because Batman is worried. Now, what you could say is Batman has gotten to the point where he can make that judgment call.
Yeah, well, that's like a 70-year-old Batman.
Yeah. So maybe after 30 years, 40 years, he's like, okay, I'm now at the point where I can make that judgment call.
Yeah.
And I can say, in this case, Joker needed to be stopped. This was the way to stop him.
Yeah.
But in most other cases, I won't do that.
Yeah, well, there's another scene in that whole animation and the comic book where there's an army of mutants, and his Batmobile is shooting bullets at them. It's like, what is he doing? And it's firing rubber bullets, and so he takes down an army.
But Batman is not mentally equipped to be a judge.
Yes.
He's aware of that, and he's terrified of slipping. Yeah. Because the whole thing about Batman...
DC, actually.
Well, no, but Batman... Yeah. Why doesn't Batman kill? Like, everyone says, why doesn't Batman kill? There is a Batman that kills in DC. He's called Ra's al Ghul. That's what Batman doesn't want.
Yeah.
That's his teacher.
Or there's the worst Batman that kills.
Well, there's Azrael. And
there's the Batman who laughs.
Yeah, well, that might be taken a bit far. Although Batman's...
the Batman who laughs isn't...
Well, he's just... I guess Batman's more capable than Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah, he's not Joker. So the Batman who laughs is, in that universe, he kills his... No, he doesn't kill his Joker in that universe, but he basically gets mentally affected by something, and so he becomes a Batman who kills for his solutions.
The Joker's the outsider, I think, in that one.
A Joker just gives up, and then he comes back later in Batman Laughs.
But there's like the outsider or the in-betweener or something. He goes to the other universes and helps them.
Yeah, that Joker starts doing that.
Yeah.
And then the Joker in the World 1, when the Batman Laughs shows up, basically helps Batman fight him because he hates that thing. Because basically Joker's whole game is trying to push Batman around. Like, that's his whole...
Okay, this is psychologically analyzing someone that doesn't exist, right? So this is something the comic book writers do all the time. But Joker doesn't want Batman to fail his tests. Yeah. Because that's the only thing that gives Joker hope. Well, how about that?
Yeah.
Every time Batman or Commissioner Gordon resists Joker's nihilism, that gives Joker another reason to live.
Yeah. Well, so there's two storylines from the comics. One of them is Batman dies, and he's dead. And Alfred reveals who he was to everyone. And so everyone's attending his funeral. And Superman there's a whole bunch of people there. And Joker shows up with a bomb, and he's going to kill everyone. And he's waiting to be stopped, and no one's capable of stopping him there. And he just breaks down crying because Batman's not there to stop him. And then there's a bit of a side joke of he goes and becomes a DMV worker,
like the car people?
Yeah, to cause as much suffering as possible. But the other one is the plot to Injustice, which is Joker kills Lois Lane and her unborn child. As I want to try it on easy mode, and then Superman murders him. And that's when the civil war between them starts. And... because he's never been able to beat Batman. But even then, when Joker never has the opportunity... Well, he kills Superman. Like, he gets that breakout of Superman, and he finds it hilarious. But still, not the victory that Joker wanted. Joker wanted Batman to break by him doing that and seeing that happen to Superman, and he doesn't get that victory. And so he gets like the second place of getting killed by Superman.
There's yeah. So with the magic, you lock the villain up every time because to do otherwise is to know deep in your heart of hearts that you're taking a shortcut. Yeah. And it's not the natural process is to go through the judge. And that is growing the tomato seed. That is turning the lead into gold.
Yeah, that's the rules that your society and country have set.
But there's...
And you don't supersede those. You don't take the shortcut around them.
There's more to that than that, because you can disobey your laws. Yeah. They can be unjust. But justice itself has... So this is a fascinating concept. So the Sephiroth, there's 10 of them, I think. And they're male and female aspected. Yeah. The male Sephiroth are...
Sorry, I'm just thinking...
Well, it's kind of weird because Sephiroth's the plural. His name should be Sephira. But it's like calling his name being angels, which is kind of what they are. But the male Sephiroth are active virtues. So courage, can't remember right now. But courage is one, let's say.
Yeah.
The female Sephiroth are passive virtues. So, virtues that exist without action.
Yeah.
Like, trying to think of one.
It's unfortunate they're non-groups of 3 because I can't make the joke that I came up with.
No, there's 4 of each, I believe.
Yeah. There's 3 kinds of people in this world, Cameron.
Yeah.
Those who can remember lists of 3,
Those
and those who can't, and I can't remember the third one.
Okay, so we have active, such as wisdom. Passive, such as intelligence. Active, such as victory. Passive, such as honor.
Yeah.
Actually, that's kind of interesting that honor is passive. I guess your natural state is honor? I don't know. But the one that I thought was really interesting, which is passive, so it's a feminine Sephiroth, is justice. So the idea of justice is that it is in the world. It's not something to be achieved.
Yeah.
It is something that exists.
Well, there's the line from the Bible I've quoted several times, which is God says, "Do not take revenge.
Leave judgment to me."
Yeah, justice is mine, or judgment is mine.
Judgment is mine alone.
Yeah.
Actually, I was in a really bad spot a couple months ago. Not like nearly as bad as I've been in other times, but a low relative to the surrounding year, let's say.
Yeah.
And my usual... It's the most powerful scene Brandon Sanderson has ever written, where Delinor, whatever his name is clutching the Way of Kings in his hands, curled up on the floor, and it's done nothing to help him.
Yeah.
Because I've felt that before, and it is such a powerless feeling where you have this rock that keeps you grounded, and the rock washes away, and you're left with nothing. You're like, this wasn't sufficient.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of in one of those situations where my normal fallbacks weren't working. And for some reason, the Lord's Prayer of all things came into my head. And it's one of those things where you have to be in the moment to really understand it. But each line in that is brilliant.
Well, those lines...
Carefully constructed brilliance.
Have been refined throughout the ages until only the things that are important are in them. And there's a lot of songs, like church songs, that like I've heard so many times I should know them. There's only one that I remember.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, there's 2. One of them is because the only words in it are Hallelujah. But the other is the Lord's Prayer. And we know the Lord's Prayer is a song.
Yeah. And it really fights back against most problems. Like each line helps with a different facet of most problems.
Well, there's an interesting scene in horror movies, particularly with the supernatural, where something bad's happening to one of the characters. And someone will break down and start muttering the Lord's Prayer. And sometimes it can be derogatory towards them. It's like, oh, all they can do is the Lord's Prayer in this moment. But another way of looking at that is this person is going to die here because this monster is going to kill them. And so they're making peace.
But it's more than that. It's making peace, yeah. But it's not peace with... It's peace on earth, not peace that you are leaving the earth, but peace on earth.
Yeah. Because
this thing... Look, I'm an atheist, right? And I hated church. You were talking about clubs, right? How you started going to the men's group because you wanted a socializing activity. I hate clubs. I thought church, I thought even archery and rock climbing to an extent, wrestling, sports, all these things. Yeah. They're a way to keep me, piano, they're an activity I have to do that keeps me away from my friends. Yeah. Because I would rather just be with my friends, but instead I have to go to this place with a bunch of people I only know from the club, and I would rather be doing stuff with my friends. So I don't like clubs, and I see them as antisocial. Yeah. But that's because of where my friends are and how it arranged for me. So I don't like church. I never really liked it. I went out of a sense of duty, and because we had to, because when we were younger. And I don't like, I don't agree with what any faith preaches as a dogmatic instruction. And my biggest problem with church was all these prayers where you're talking to God and you're saying, like, you know, I trust you, Lord, to take me in your hands, or whatever it might be. It's like, no, I don't. I don't trust you. I don't know who you are, and I don't trust a word you have to say.
Well, it's weird. I pray with my eyes open. And a lot of people get weirded out by that, and I meditate with my eyes open.
So the devil don't sneak up on you. So I don't pray.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't pray. I'm an atheist. I'm not religious to the extent humans cannot be religious. Maybe we'll call it. So this was taking the Lord's. I think you could give the Lord's Prayer to to one of the Tukana people that we talked about before, who have never met an outsider. You could translate it into their language, give it to them, and it would be useful to them to help them in a time of crisis. And so I have no idea why I decided to say it. Or not exactly things.
I do this smugly because it's fun. But 2 of my very good friends are atheists. And another one's agnostic. On the extent of being an atheist. And all of them swear by saying, like, God damn it, or stuff with God. And I take a little bit of smug victory in that. And so one simple argument is it's a swear word, and it's within our English culture to swear like that. But I like to pretend, and small pound even believe that you can't really escape it in a way. And it's not like escape it, but it's just a certain extent that, I don't know, Freudian slip maybe.
So there's this annoying thing theists do.
Yeah.
Where they think...
Yeah, no, this is... I'm saying I do this.
Yes. Where theists think that atheists secretly believe in God, but don't want to admit it.
Yes.
And it's very weird.
And so this is my guilty pleasure at people whenever they swear using the word God, because I'm not a fan with how much a lot of people swear, because there's a time and a place to swear, and what you're doing right now is not a time and a place to swear. That's just my own opinion.
Yeah. Puritan. I don't mind swearing at all.
And so when someone who's atheist swears with a swear of faith, I guess, I get some sort of sick, twisted pleasure out of it.
That's why the Puritans did that, was they wanted to just feel superior at all times.
Why I don't like swearing.
That's why they made themselves miserable, so they could always feel smugly superior about their misery.
Why I don't like swearing is I think words are important, and words have power to an extent. And I want swears to be swears. I don't want them just to be words in a vernacular. I want them actually to be swear words.
What are those evil witches from Dungeon Keeper 2 called?
The torturers?
Yeah. Are they just called torturers?
It might be temptress. I can't remember.
Anyways, there's no difference between that kind of person, like a masochist, and a flagellant, right? There's no difference. They just want to feel superior about something, and it makes them feel good. It's just the feeling of superiority for the flagellant is so great. It gives them masochistic pleasure.
Swearing isn't puritanical for me.
You want those words to have more power.
Yes.
Yeah. Because
they do have power. Even if we go back to monkeys, the sort of sounds that swear words are how monkeys say there's a leopard coming.
Yeah, and I do think being careful with your words is a thing I try to do as well. Yeah. However, I'm not going to resent anyone for doing otherwise.
I used to do this, but I'm not anymore. I'm not going to force my will upon the world and tell my friends, hey, don't swear.
Yes, but it's not even going to bother me.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me because it's they're the one damaging the word for themselves, not me. It doesn't affect me.
Yeah. Well, there's even that extent of when I do swear, people are like, oh my goodness, Connor must be angry about
for
something.
A damn good reason.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do a very similar thing to them, except I use words like bloody and heck, and it's because I'm using a very specific set of words, which we in Australia don't consider swears.
Well, blimey is a really interesting one, because that, if you think about it, is actually very scary to say. Because what you're saying is, God blind me. And that is a swear and a half.
Funny thing in D&D we had us playing with a friend of ours online, and one guy said, well, I'll be a son of a gun. I was like, wait, do we have guns in this universe? And I explained, well, gun actually has to refer to a gunnel in a ship, which is usually where the women were in the gunnels. And I just went through that whole thing. I was like, well, I guess I can't use that anymore.
Yeah, it's like you don't know who your mother is because so many men have been through.
Yeah,
yeah, it's
no, it's not a gun; it's a gunnel.
I was actually thinking of handgun's quite an interesting word because it applies that it's in your hand, right?
Yeah.
So you say, well, what's a gun then? And well, because gun is another word for cannon.
Mm.
So gun, cannon, gun, they're the same word.
Yeah.
And so handgun is hand cannon.
Yeah.
But it is kind of funny.
Well, that's sort of like, what's a gun then?
Yeah.
There's this funny thing in nature, which is so tigers have 2 white dots on the back of their ears, which are to be eyes, which is so their predators don't think they're sneaking up on them. What on earth is the tiger's predator?
Oh.
Like that's like when you hear that thing, that's a thought you really should be thinking.
I can think of 2 animals that can hunt a tiger.
A polar bear and a human?
No. A tiger and a human. Like that lives where tigers live.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a polar bear wouldn't hunt a tiger. It'd be too dangerous.
Well, that's the other thing with the Uncanny Valley is things that are really similar to humans but aren't humans creep us out and disturb us. Why do we have that reaction?
Yeah, what are we afraid?
It could be the Neanderthals and
or it could
the
just
giants
be
and the other things.
We're tripping out some sort of sensor, essentially.
Yeah. Or there are doppelgangers that look like humans but aren't, and they're skinwalkers that stalk us, so we have to kill them.
But also, like a tesseract will kind of mess with your head.
Yeah.
Because it's a cube. It's a 4-dimensional cube, and it kind of throws you off a little.
But even there are people who look like people, but they're slightly off, and they disturb you.
Yeah.
And usually, when they look slightly off, it's not because of their physical appearance, but it's because of their mental state is making them act off, and then that transfers into their appearance and their body.
Well, Bob Gimlin said
and so they're actually become a dangerous person.
Bob Gimlin, the YouTuber, said this great thing, which was, the 3 most common fears of humans across all cultures are snakes, spiders, and public speaking. He said, what happened to you? What does that mean about speaking in public?
Yeah.
If you said the wrong things, you died.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really, he did this whole, I don't know if you heard that, but he did this whole little rant about things humans like and their phobias and their philias and what that says about people.
Yeah.
Why are so many people obsessed with feet? He's like, well, that might mean health, or this might mean this. Why are people afraid of public speaking? And it was an interesting little tangent he did.
Mm-hmm.
But what on earth were we talking about?
We were talking about magic.
Yes, but just after magic. Between Bob Gimlin and magic.
Mushrooms? No.
No, you were...
I was saying something, you weren't talking. And so now I was going to remember.
No, there was something happening. It was really interesting. I wanted to say more.
Let's just don't talk for a moment then, and we'll think on it. And let's fire harpoons. Human behavior that affects tigers with eyes.
Yes,
on
tigers.
The ears.
Yeah. What hunts the tigers? But then before that was the swearing.
Yeah.
So how did you remember what we were talking about? And why did it take more time than instantaneous?
Ooh. Well, I had to backtrack and connect it to things.
And I think that's why I like, I don't know about you, but I think that's why I like creative things, is the process of coming up with problems and then solving them. It's like I'm a interdimensional poacher. I just shoot for the joy of killing. I don't
there's something I really do want to talk about on creative processes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of E3 season right now.
Yeah.
But E3 is kind of dead.
Yeah.
And I was watching Microsoft's presentation, which also now includes Bethesda's presentation. And also Blizzard's presentation. And while I was watching it, I was looking at these video games, and I was thinking, a lot of these look really bland, really boring.
Yeah.
Even Starfield, it has some interesting things, but I was concerned by... So they showed the starting planet, and I was like, okay, it's an interesting star on this moon, and then you go to this capital, and he's like, and you have this whole solar system, and you can go to different parts of the solar system. It's like, okay, please don't say you can go beyond this solar system. I was actually thinking that, because I believe that, what is it called? Outer Wilds, they individually crafted every single planet in that, and each planet is interesting, has a different points of interest to explore on it, and every single part of the planets are interesting crafted.
Have you noticed Outer Wilds is a Metroidvania?
No.
There is quicker paths to do everything, but you have to discover them.
Yeah.
And it's not, you don't unlock anything. It's knowledge-based Metroidvania.
Yeah. Yeah,
so it's really interesting.
So on that, though, it's like, so I believe that they've been working on this game for a long time, Starfield, and they could basically build, he's saying this is our biggest game ever, and so they could build every single planet like Skyrim, so the size of Skyrim, and the work put into it, but for planets in the whole solar system. And it's like, they could do that.
Yeah.
Their team's definitely big enough, they could do that, and it could be really fun, it could be really cool. And he's like, and there's over 100 different solar systems to go to. And they showed some really beautiful shots of the planets flying over. But playing No Man's Sky and the procedural generation of each planet, it is so meaningless, that size. And maybe, but the one thing that gave me hope is they did develop Daggerfall.
Yeah. And
Daggerfall is procedurally generated.
Yes.
And there's points of interest in Daggerfall. But also, I believe there are towns and dungeons that were procedurally generated.
The whole world is procedurally generated in Daggerfall.
Okay, and then they just tweaked the spots they wanted?
Yeah.
Yeah, so with that in mind, if anyone can pull off having over 100 solar systems and making it interesting and having each planet being worthwhile, it is Bethesda.
It's Sandy Peterson who left.
Todd Howard, though, everything's...
Yeah. Well, he's the guy that did Morrowind, though.
Yeah.
And that is what actually... So I have
this is the start of this.
Okay, keep going then.
Yeah, so this is the start of this idea.
Although I have a few things to assuage your concerns about this.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Todd Howard
Yeah.
is the guy that made Morrowind.
Yeah.
That was... So Arena was massive. Daggerfall was massive.
Yeah.
Morrowind was tiny, highly focused on very specific little things. Mm-hmm. Totally changed how the Elder Scrolls series worked.
Yeah.
That was Todd Howard. And people said this is an amazing idea. If Todd Howard feels comfortable making 1,000 planets, given that he is the guy that destroyed the giant scope originally, he's probably feeling fairly confident in it.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that assuages that concern. The other thing is No Man's Sky has quintillions of planets.
Yeah.
1,000 planets. If you give 10 people a planet to work on for a month, you could in like 6 years you could get a fairly detailed planet from a team of like 100 people, 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Bethesda has, and they have now Microsoft backing. They could handcraft all of 1,000 planets. I don't think they would because the cost benefit would be ridiculous. I think the only company on Earth that could pull it off would be the Pokemon company.
Yeah.
And they're just so lazy they wouldn't. But they're the only company that I think makes that kind of returns. Although, actually, well, Bethesda is the other one, actually.
Yeah.
Because Skyrim is the second best selling. It's up there.
Yeah.
It's like Minecraft, GTA, and Skyrim.
Tetris.
And Tetris and Pokemon Red. Yeah. Well, that's in numbers and money back. Yeah. It's Genshin Impact. But
Diablo Immortal.
That's not going to make money. People aren't.
It's made a ton of money.
Oh, well, no, it's not going to make money. It's
not gonna I need to send you a video on
it. It's not going to make money.
I need to send you a video on how horrible it is.
Well, I know you have to spend something like $500,000.
No, this Immortal is a masterpiece in evil. Like, it's appropriate that it's called Diablo. Let's just put it's a masterpiece.
Okay. So the other thing that you can be less concerned about is when you have 1,000 planets, or when you have Daggerfall, which has thousands of dungeons, I think, and I think it's over 1,000 dungeons, and you have hundreds of towns and a ridiculously wide open area. It's the same for every player. So if you go to one planet, the other player will have the exact same experience on that planet. In No Man's Sky, even though that's technically true, the universe is so ridiculously big that it isn't. And I don't even know how the base building works in No Man's Sky. I don't even know if that's consistent between players or not.
It is consistent.
Okay, so that's cool. But you're still not going to run into anyone else's place like most of the time.
Another thing that worried me slightly, and I hope they do it like they did Fallout, which they showed they have base building and resource gathering, and No Man's Sky was crippled by that in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I really hope that Bethesda doesn't do that, because I hope they make it like Fallout, where Fallout has base building, and it can be fun, but you can completely ignore it, and I like completely ignoring it.
So, what people will joke about when modding Skyrim is they will get a mod that will completely overhaul a spell sword type class. Yeah. So it will allow you to combine magic and spellcasting together in a way. You take up like 3 gigabytes on your computer to get this unique sword fighting style where you can cast spells on your swords to do stuff. And then you'll play as a stealth archer.
Yeah.
Why that this is unique to Bethesda.
Yeah.
That is actually important to have the option. You need hundreds of options you'll never use to enjoy a Bethesda game.
Yes.
Because Bethesda's key thing over everything else is immersion.
Yeah.
If you want to do something, you can. That is what Bethesda is about. So I don't think the base building will be a focus.
Because and the spaceship building looks really cool.
Now, the only thing about the base building that would concern me is in Fallout, it's pointless.
Yeah.
There's no reason to do it whatsoever. If they could make it have a point, that would be...
Well, I think the point for it is so you can build your spaceships better, and the spaceships is how you travel from planet to planet, and you can fight other spaceships.
But if they could throw in like a tower defense or something, that would be nice. To give you a reason to actually build a base. Yeah. Because if the reason to build a base is just to look nice, then that is kind of disappointing. But Bethesda, they really do make things about... It's there so that you know you can do it if you wanted to.
Yeah, they're making Starfield as a space exploration game with RPG.
Like, I like to have mods in Skyrim that I can cut down trees, even if I never cut down a tree.
Yeah.
So, the other thing is, I'm modding Skyrim right now. I'm trying to make it work because something's horribly broken.
Same.
And mine is the dialogues disappearing. Is that yours?
Mine just doesn't launch, so I disabled every single mod, and I'm systematically reinstalling every single one.
Yeah, same. But mine's really weird. Anyways, the thing I've noticed is I've installed a lot of quest mods, right?
Yeah.
And I was trying to go to Bleak Falls Barrow. And someone's put a great big honking building in the middle of the path to Bleak Falls Barrow called the Sanctuary, something like that.
Yeah.
And then right next to Bleak Falls Barrow, there's like a trapdoor or something. And so my world is really crowded. Like there's too many quests. I went into an inn and there was like 40 people talking at me at once. Okay, it was like 10. But there was 10 people giving me their quest at once. Giving me a quest at once. Yeah. Very overwhelming.
Yeah.
This is a Bethesda game. They like to release the creation kit to the public.
Yeah.
If you have 1,000 worlds, you can actually basically completely ignore the possibility of mod conflicts.
I was just thinking, so Starfield's released, and they have the main solar system and one other solar system that actually have content on them. Then all the other planets are just like the missing texture zones, and there's just a little sign floating above. It's like, just mod it yourself.
Well, I think that wouldn't even be a bad idea.
Or if it's Bethesda's evil side, Creation Club spot here.
Yeah, well, that would be unfortunate. But if they actually just said, look, these 4 solar systems are our stuff. Yeah. The rest are for the modders. But because why you do that? Okay, so Minecraft added copper. Mm-hmm. Copper isn't that useful. It's like, well, okay, why'd they add... But everyone was really excited Minecraft added copper. Why? Because you don't need Ore Dictionary anymore.
Yes.
Because every mod that uses copper can now use Minecraft's base.
Ooh, should I use the orange copper or the slightly less orange copper? Or the...
So the Starfield modders could theoretically say, okay, we're going to just you download this mod, it's called 10 Blank Planets, and we put 10 Blank Planets there. Yeah. But everyone has to download this 10 Blank Planets mod, and it's just another mod that adds to the order and the complexity of the whole thing. Whereas if Bethesda does it from the beginning, I'm not saying this is what they're doing, but it does actually give a better base for modders to work with. Yeah. So I'm not concerned there. Now, I do have other concerns with Starfield, and you do too, so...
So actually, this conversation wasn't about Starfield, though.
Right.
So Starfield is the one of the big things I was actually interested in.
I really don't like the levels next to
No,
the
I don't
health
like
bars.
that at all. I hope that's disableable.
Because that reminds me a lot of The Witcher.
Yeah, it breaks immersion for me seeing that. Like, there's mods and stuff. It's like, ooh, these GUI mods for Skyrim. I don't like those.
No.
Actually,
I get mods that
get rid of
flatten
health bar.
levels.
I get mods that remove health bars.
Yeah, but I flatten levels so bandits are always the same level. Because I don't want one bandit to take 10 arrows and the other to take 2. It doesn't make sense. Well, it kind of does, but yeah.
So, blah, blah. So the other thing, so there's one other video game which is an island's being taken over by vampires, and I thought that was slightly interesting looking. I didn't like the main character because she was trying to force her personality onto me, and I'd rather play that game where I could have my personality in that character.
It's worse than that. The character was acting jovial on a vampire-infested island, right?
Yeah.
I don't know why people do this, but they try to have these really cool-seeming characters that are having fun and joking in these horrible situations, right? It makes them look like complete psychopaths. Absolutely deranged.
It's kind of why the Doom guy is actually refreshing. Because, yeah, I mean, he is a complete psycho. But there's this whole thing where this computer starts talking to him, and he punches it.
Yeah.
And so he ignores that. And the Doom guy is sort of like, well, he's the Doom guy. He's this very scary...
You can lean into it. Like, with Duke Nukem, for example. He is being blatant, but Duke Nukem is an awful person.
Yeah.
Whereas this girl, I think, the way they're presenting her, she's trying to be likable.
You've played Dishonored, right? A bit?
I've played almost through the tutorial of Dishonored.
So the main character in Dishonored is a grumpy guts. And he has every right to be a grumpy guts. Like, my goodness, he has an awful life. But he doesn't make those... Like, he'll crack jokes with his friends when it's appropriate, but he's not jovial about it because... Well, his wife and daughter got murdered at the start of the game?
Well, what I really don't like about Dishonored, and it's not a bad thing, it's just I really don't like it. All the people you're killing aren't bad people.
Yes.
And it's kind of... It makes me feel... It's like, look... I'm doing this because the ends justify the means.
You can play Dishonored without killing a single person.
No, you can't.
You can beat the game without killing anyone.
No, you can't.
It makes it really hard, but you can beat the game without killing a single person.
No, Connor, I choked out a guy, right?
Yeah.
And then I dropped him.
He got eaten by rats.
No, I don't think they can if you choke him out.
No, they can.
Oh.
If you leave someone in a dangerous area after choking them out, and there's rats on the ground, a rat swarm will come and eat them. So they're trying to do if you want to do a playthrough without killing anyone, and the rat swarms are getting bad, you have to carry them to safe locations and stuff them into cupboards so rats don't eat them.
No, so I choked the guy out, and then he slipped out of my grasp and slipped into a canal.
Yeah. So
I actually swam into the canal and pulled him out. I don't know if they can drown or not, but...
They probably would after a time, but... Yeah, so anyways, that's not even my problem that I want to talk about as a joke in this. But that is like, I'm slightly interested because
I'm sorry.
I like vampires.
You like Arcane, apparently.
Yeah.
The most thing I've noticed about Dishonored, it feels really like Dark Messiah, Might and Magic.
Yeah. Well, I like vampires, and it has some interesting looking mechanics to it, and it reminds me of Left 4 Dead and Vermintide, but it's with vampires and...
By the creators of Dishonored. So.
Yeah, so it's interesting looking to me. But no, my problem is just how boring so many of these other games looked. And so, I want to ask you a question on this now. How would you make a video game? Because I know you make board games, or it's a cowboy thing. How would you make a video game? How do you start with a video game?
So, well, I am working on a video game, and so I'll say how I did that. So actually, okay, so I've made video games before.
Yeah.
You've seen most of them, I think.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is, I made these games when I was maybe 14, 16, somewhere in there. And they're not bad. They're okay, right? Yeah. They're like arcadey, most of them. But they're games made by someone learning to make video games.
Yeah.
A lot of people are selling those things.
Yeah.
They're sticking a bunch of assets in Unity and then selling it.
Yeah.
But look, I don't want to be Brandon Sanderson and say you have to write 5 books before you can publish a book, because that's ridiculous. Okay, so I would make a game the exact way Miyamoto himself said to make a game. And this guy knows what he's talking about because he made Mario and Zelda. So, and this is how I'm making my game.
Yeah.
Miyamoto said, make a fun system and then build the game around it, essentially. So, for Mario games, he made sure that jumping and running was really, really fun. And then he added everything else in.
Yeah.
He figured out what he wanted in the world. So, the development of... what was the... Super Mario 64.
Yeah.
They spent a year with Mario in a field, just jumping around, before they added in the game.
Yeah.
And they just wanted to get the movement feeling as fluid and fun as possible. So, with my game that I'm making, it's similar to Heroes of Might and Magic, let's say. And I don't know if I'll ever finish it, but it was fun to work on. So what I did was I wanted to go from ground up of not... Okay, this is a... I'm going to have... So one way I used to make games, right? Like, I designed games. It was like, okay, here's Might and Magic. So I need an attack, I need a defense, I need a movement, I need a... This... Yeah. Okay. I'll give... Okay, and now what does an elephant have? It has this. What does a dragon have? It has this. Okay. And then they'll fight like this. So I didn't do that this time. Mm-hmm. What I did was I said, what am I looking for? I'm looking for a game that's like Heroes of Might and Magic. So that was sort of my founding point. I wanted to make something in that vein. Yeah. But like I said on the previous episode, don't copy the product, seek what they saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, so what I want to create is an RPG where your weapons are your creatures. Because that is what I think Heroes of Might and Magic is an RPG.
Yeah.
Where you're a multiplayer turn-based RPG where your weapons and armor are your creatures that you pick up, essentially. And so I said, okay, so combat is going to be something I want in this game. So let's do combat. I created creatures. I want there to be upgrading because upgrading is fun.
Yeah.
So I have creatures. They're called Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. So there's an Alpha Tier 1, there's an Alpha Tier 2, there's an Alpha Tier 3. And then there's an Alpha Tier 1...
Okay, don't have to get this much details on this thought experiment.
But I want to. Okay, so... I'm not saying my whole game. I'm saying the thought process for creating the game. So, I create these things. And then I say, okay, what do I need... So the important part is I didn't create the creatures. I created a housing for the combat.
Yeah. And
then I said, what do I need to have them fight? What stats are necessary? Yeah. So I said, okay, they need to deter. So some creatures are going to hit harder than others. So you need a hitting stat. So you can call it attack. You need creatures that can take a hit better. So you can call that defense. Yeah. I didn't ever add a movement stat because I didn't end up needing it. So it was only if I need something, then I'll add it. I eventually needed an initiative, so I added initiative. I eventually needed a damage, so I added damage. So if I was to design a game, I would not start... Okay, here, I'll make it quicker for the sake of your thought experiment, maybe. A way I see a lot of people make a game is they say, I want to make a Legend of Zelda game. So they stick a figure down in a field, and they say, okay, I'll just give the sword some random damage, and I'll give it some enemies to fight. Mm-hmm. That is not the way to do it. The way to do it is to say, what would be fun to do, and then work outward from there. Yeah. You do not start with creating the whole world and sticking stuff in it and then work backwards to a game. Because what I've noticed some games do is they will radically pivot the core gameplay features throughout the development or even in early access and shift away. Okay, yeah,
So you made me think of something just by saying that last bit there, which I'm happy you said because it was a big problem, this. So when I think of making games, I'm not thinking I want an RPG. Or I want a platformer.
Yeah.
What I'm doing, like I had a video game I wanted to make. I wanted to be a video game maker.
Yeah.
And I wanted a game where you start in the stone. You start as primitive humans, and you can get to space.
Yes.
That's what I wanted.
Yes. You start with an idea, not a genre.
Yes. So that was my idea. That's the game I wanted. And so one approach to this game could be civilization. So that's a way to go through this game. Now, in my head, I envision it somehow being a bit like Spore. Like it's a RPG sort of go through as humans, but you're like inventing things, advancing, and like jumping from generation to generation. And the game that I wanted is kind of absurd to make because I wanted to be capable of inventing technologies that humans hadn't invented in the game system. So you'd need some crazy AI or something to make this work. Because I didn't want it to be, oh, I need to invent the wheel to do this. It's, if you invent the wheel, you invent the wheel. You can go from there. And so it's absurd.
Well, I think it's doable on a... So Aurora 4X, you can kind of do that. But Aurora 4X starts in the modern day. So you would need to mod Aurora 4X to go into VAST. So there is ways to do it, and I can say how you can do that, but you can go on.
Anyway, so that's one game idea. Another game idea I had is I want a game where medieval armies can fight each other. Not even medieval. I want, like, you can build kingdoms and they can interact and fight. Age of Empires is that.
Yeah.
Another is I do like the idea of, like, RPGs and stuff. So, but, like, I want a knight who goes and he fights the armies of evil.
Yeah. Start with an idea, not a genre. Yeah.
And so one of the problems, so Mario is the idea of we want a really fun game with this jumping.
We want really fun, skilled motion.
Yeah, it's poetry in motion.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of like they had idea and they expanded it from there. And because some games is, I have a cool mechanic. So Portal 1 is a really fun tech demo that they had some amazing writing put onto it to make it even better. And Portal is a good game. I was trying to, like, match this idea of how it's work, because Portal definitely didn't start, we want a game about someone escaping a lab. It was, we're using our engine, and we made so someone can create portals. And so they like, this is really cool. So they expanded from their portals while thinking with portals. And it's a very good game for that.
The secret to portals is it's not thinking with portals.
Yeah.
This is really weird that you brought this up, because that guy was talking about the architect of the games.
Yeah.
This was one of the exact examples he gave for basically the exact same topic. And what he said was, everyone remembers Portal for having this really tight core mechanic of portals. Yeah. That's not what it has. Every 2 levels, it introduces a new mechanic.
Yeah.
So Portal is actually more of a game about discovery and experimentation with brand new things constantly. It's like, now you have lasers, now you have light bridges, now you have goo, now you have a different colored goo, now you have turrets you have to fight. Now there's an acid. Now there's a stealth section. Now you have to play catch. Now you have to do this time trial. It's not a more and more complex of using portals, which is what so many games make the mistake of doing. It was really interesting, but yeah.
But so Half-Life is a game about a mad scientist beating up other mad scientists from...
Half-Life is showing off the Havoc physics engine.
Yeah, but I mean, Half-Life's kind of like it's the very first of its kind in a way of a game to that extent.
Yeah.
But even with Doom, there, and a lot of old video games, is I really want a game about this guy with a shotgun shooting demons from hell. Like, I really want that.
Yeah.
How can we make this into something? And so they chose to make it a first-person shooter through weird geometric things, but they wanted something, and they made it.
Yes. And I think...
And a lot of the modern video games I was looking at, I don't know their thought processes of this, but even like Skyrim games, like the very first ones, Arena and those things is, let's have this guy go out, and he's this hero of the story, and he's fighting a bunch of things, and he's like in this medieval fantasy world.
Yeah.
How are we going to do this? Well, we can make it this first-person thing. He can walk down these dungeons. He can go exploring. So they sort of came up with that. So how can we make him do this?
Actually, Arena really followed the fun. So Arena, the whole point of the game, was you're a gladiator, and you go and you fight in an arena. You have battles. Battle after battle after battle. And while they were developing this arena fighting game, one of the developers came up with a fun idea. Okay, what about... You can upgrade your character from stuff in the arena. But what if there was like a lull for a month? You could just go out into a dungeon to get a bit of extra gear. Yeah. And then they're like, okay, we'll try that. So they threw that in. And then they're like, let's add more dungeons. And then they abandoned the arena because they're having so much fun with making the dungeons.
Yeah, but they had an idea.
Yeah.
And it grew from there.
Yeah.
And when I'm looking at a lot of these, and so Mario 2 and Mario 3 and like the further Elder Scrolls games are expanding on this idea and already existing systems. But then I look at some of these new games that they're showing, and I look at them and this person here is making a platformer. This person here is making an RPG. They're not going, how can I make a game...
They're doing, you need this, 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 and this.
So a game that had a huge amount of buzz about was Medieval Kingdom Come?
Kingdom Come Deliverance?
Yeah, Kingdom Come Deliverance. So it kind of fell off the popularity it had. But that game was, how can we have a medieval life sim? And like a lot of people were really, really into it. And Sea of Thieves, what had so many people so enthused about Sea of Thieves is, how can we make a pirate simulator? Like, we want to make a game where you get to play as a pirate. And they did that. They did it really well. But so many of these other games, it just looks like to me, it's like, how... Let's make a platformer. And let's make it artsy. And, ooh, let's do this. And then do it like this. Or let's make a game that's like Legend of Zelda.
So I can...
And a lot of...
Did you see...
Like, a lot of those games just feel like they have no soul. Or
Did you see the Black Creators Video Games Showcase?
No.
So, it was one of the first things of the Summer Games Fest type stuff.
I only saw Microsoft's,
Okay.
and I skipped through anything that bored me.
Okay, so the Black Creators thing. First of all, they did that thing that mistake everyone but Microsoft and Nintendo make. Yeah. Microsoft used to make it, and then Phil Spencer, I don't know what happened. He took the reins and he's like, I'm making this company amazing. Because Phil Spencer, I don't know. He's like the only big tech guy. He'll let me down someday, but right now he's the only big tech guy that I'm like, wow, man, you're actually kind of cool. That'll probably change.
No human's perfect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't care about perfect. It's just they're all evil. Except Phil Spencer, for now.
Even Muskie?
Maybe not Musk. Yeah. Well, no. You have to pay. You have to get a subscription to unlock features of your Tesla cars. There's like microtransactions in the cars. No, Musk is garbage. No. I'm talking about just bad consumer practices, not evil people.
Yeah.
Just bad consumer practices. Yeah. And Phil Spencer seems to be the only pro-consumer big guy out there.
Games Pass is amazing.
Yeah. Like, even Microsoft is horrible. But Phil Spencer, he's like, I don't know.
Well, like I said, the Games Pass is amazing. I don't have it, but just conceptually, it's amazing.
Yeah. They should fire whoever's in charge of Microsoft and put Phil Spencer in charge, because he would turn that company around. They might start making money.
That's what happened, basically.
What are we talking? Oh yeah, Black Creators thing. Yeah. So they did that mistake that everyone makes, where they didn't show their game for the first half. It was like 15 minutes of just talking, and then they showed the game. The game was a Mega Man X ripoff, basically.
Yeah.
Really stiff looking. It looks like someone said, I wonder if I can make Mega Man X in Unity. And then they stuck the things... Okay, so Mega Man X, it has a guy that shoots. You can jump, you can dash, and there's enemies you have to shoot. And there's platforms that move. And then they stuck them in the game and they said, I'm going to sell this. Like, that would be a great training exercise.
Yeah.
Right? Like, make Mega Man X in Unity. You have 2 weeks. That would be a great training exercise. But then they're like, I'm going to sell this. No soul whatsoever, right? So, on the other hand, Heroes Hour. You can very clearly see, because I've come to these exact same conclusions about so much of the stuff he did. So maybe that's just me being arrogant, but I don't think so. The guy loves Heroes of Might and Magic 2 and 3 and 5. And he loves them to death. Yeah. And he said, I want this game, but better. Where can I improve it? And then he took all... And he doesn't own the Heroes of Might and Magic IP. Yeah. So he can't just take Heroes of Might and Magic and make his own game. Yeah. So he said, I'm going to clone Heroes of Might and Magic, and then I am going to improve everything with brilliant game design decisions. Yeah. And why I think they're brilliant is because I've come to the exact same conclusions about a bunch of them. And that's not saying, oh, well, he thought like me. It's if two people can rationally or logically arrive at the same conclusion completely independently, they're either way off in the wrong direction or there's actually something to it. Yeah. And he's implemented so many brilliant systems into the game. Whereas Songs of Conquest does feel a bit more like they're like, let's just copy Heroes of Might and Magic.
Yeah, no, it's a shame because...
And throw in an art style that I can't even look at.
I like the art style. I enjoy it.
I love, like, if you take any one of the pixel images, stick it on a white background, that's gorgeous. If you stick them all on a screen, I'm like, what is this mess of soup I'm looking at?
And there's some very cool mechanics they have in it, and there's so much they could have done. Like, there's so much they could have done with Songs of Conquest, but a shame.
So that is my concern about Fanstratics, actually, is I'm worried that the designer will just try to... well, I don't know. So that's interesting. Heroes 3.
Yeah.
The designer... what's his name? Greg?
Well, let's go just for a second. Heroes of Might and Magic 1. Now, I don't know... It came out after the first Heroes RPG-like games, right?
Yeah.
But those games were basically... They came up with a world, they came up with an idea, and they wanted to put people into it. Mm-hmm. And so they made their systems do that. And the Hero system, a lot of people copied it, and it's kind of similar... Sorry, the Might and Magic, not Heroes. The Might and Magic system's kind of similar to, like, the Arena... And
Might and Magic... Well, no, Arena's based on Might and Magic.
Okay.
So that was based on Wizardry and Ultima.
Yeah, so those systems, though, like, you have your idea...
Behold, it's based on it's based on D&D.
Yeah. But you have your idea, and you want to make it into a game, and you see how someone else also has done it, and it's easier than innovating, although... And sometimes you can't innovate, because it's perfectly what you need. Yeah. And so you use that.
Well, that's one of the criticisms I saw of... on Heroes community of Song of Conquest. Yeah. Is someone said, Heroes 3 did this one aspect perfect, and it seems like Songs of Conquest refuses to implement it just for the reason that they want to be different.
Yeah. And so, Heroes of Might and Magic, I don't know what the creative idea was, but for me, what it feels like, especially, like, number 1 has this, but then number 2, they perfected it, is we want these people from this world we have. But basically, we want these magical monsters from D&D to form massive armies and fight each other.
Yeah.
And we want it to be over the scale of a whole world. And so they put together Heroes of Might and Magic 1, then Heroes of Might and Magic 2, mastered Heroes of Might and Magic 1, and then Heroes 3 changed slightly, but they did an amazing job as well with Heroes 3 of... they just kept working on the system they had. But the original idea is, let's have massive, distinct armies of monsters and people fight each other while they're being led by these heroes of epic power and proportion, all from the world that we've conceived together and made this idea.
And that's based on King's Conquest.
Yeah.
That's
King's Bounty.
King's Bounty, yeah.
Yeah. But just that idea of, let's get everything together and have it fun. And it feels like there's something there, but I don't know about Ori and the Blind Forest. They might have had a story, and Ori's a good game, but so many other companies and games, even that Rain World thing, that flooding thing, like, were they just trying to make a platformer with a flooding mechanic? Or
what, Rain World?
Not Rain World, that game you were playing that showed me the flood and you're the cat slug.
Yeah, that's Rain World.
Yeah.
No, you don't understand that game at all.
No, I don't. But just...
It's not a platformer, no.
Okay.
No, it's a Metroidvania.
Yeah. But it's just, like, some games... just...
Rain World is a terrible example for the point you're making.
Okay. Well, I don't know, because I just saw it briefly, but it's just certain games, they just look like... Well, RPG makers are... like...
Well, they're using... It's the same game every time with a different story, basically.
Yeah.
Although RPG Maker is actually very powerful. It's just most people don't utilize it fully.
Yeah, but even to... It just... A lot of those games I saw, it's just we're making a game to make a game.
So...
They're not doing anything interesting.
Yeah, so the distinction I was making was... If you look at a game like Heroes 3...
Yeah.
You take a carbon copy of Heroes 2 and you improve it.
Yeah.
So you're essentially polishing.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It's great to polish. Where the soullessness comes in is not when you make the carbon copy and then polish it, because that's kind of what Hollow Knight did.
Yeah.
So people love Hollow Knight, even though it's basically bog standard Metroidvania in a lot of ways. But it's just perfected a lot of systems.
Yeah.
But although it doesn't look like my kind of game. And I have issues with it. But we'll give it the benefit of the doubt and say it's just perfected the Metroidvania without innovating anything.
Well, or Dead Souls. Dead Cells.
Dead Cells. Well, that's not a Metroidvania. That's more of a new thing.
Yeah.
That's more of an innovation, I think.
Okay.
But so there's polish, there's innovation.
Yeah.
And then there's checking off a checklist.
Yeah.
So there's a game that's being created on YouTube, right? A lot of indie developers do this. And the people that do this, that develop a game on YouTube, It's really messed up, a lot of the ways they go around this. They do not... Now, if they're doing it to learn how to code, good for them. And they like making videos and they're having fun. That's all fine. But if you're actually looking at this from a game design process perspective, this is not how you should do it. Because what they're doing... So there's a game, it's called... he wants to call it SeaWorld or something. And he creates like a procedural generation system for his world. And then he creates a character. And then he gives it a weapon. And then it's like, and then I decided I would give him this special ability. And then I decided it'd be cool if the enemy was this. And then I decided, oh, that wasn't a fun way to fight it, so I might make it a turn-based combat instead. And then I said, no, I wanted it to be... He didn't start with a design document. And then... So, when you ask how do you make video games, there's this great book, actually.
That you got me.
Called The Art of Game Design. And what he says is any video game that you want to play whatsoever, you should make a board game of it first. Anything. And he said he has made...
And then, was it called? Paradox just went, yes, let's keep making board games. Let's make impossible board games.
So he gave the example of him and his team developed a first-person shooter. And they stuck little cardboard cutouts on a map that they drew. And they said, okay, you can shoot me when you're here and you can't shoot me when you're here. And this allowed them to design really good maps very quickly because they didn't have to go into their game engine and move some stuff around and then go in with their guns and shoot. They're like, okay, if I can shoot you from here, you can't shoot me from there. This is fun. I can go do that. And so he said, anything you design, you should do on paper first. Now that it doesn't have to specifically be on paper. The point is, you need to be making something, not just tooling around and hoping something cool pops out. Now, there's nothing wrong with making something cool and hoping something cool pops out. And these developers on YouTube, I hope they're having a fun time, and that's great. Do not do that for... Well, this is crazy, actually. You know that question people ask authors, like, where do you get your ideas? Why? Why do you want to know? But think about it, actually. Why do they want to know? Why do you think they want to know?
So they can do it themselves.
Right. But if you don't have ideas, why would you want to be an author? Because my friend Cody, who writes, and me, we're the two, and you write, and my friend over there writes. The thing that we have in common that I've noticed is not that, if we come up with these ideas and then we write, like, I want to be a writer. It's like, no. We have so many ideas we need to write because we're going to lose them otherwise. And,
or I have to, for me, and like I haven't written for a while, but I don't know, you know how your computers have a certain amount of space? I have a certain portion of my brain devoted to maintaining this thing.
2 years I couldn't use my arms.
No, I can only imagine.
I was going mad. Once I could start typing, I just went...
Well, it's not one thing. I have like 3 things that are... I've discarded some stuff, but I have 3 that I basically have on cycle of maintaining my head.
My friend Cody, he was saying to me, I have so many ideas for books that I've realized I can't write them all in my lifetime. What do I do? And I said to him, well, what I do is I try to combine them.
Yep, that's what I do too. Like, that's why I have 3. And I come up with ideas all the time. And sometimes I just let them die. Other times I find the coolest part of one of them and then attach it to a different part.
Now, Cody, like, he writes Brandon Sanderson speeds. Like, he can write. Like, but the thing is, he has no time in his life. So we probably write at about the same speed, but he can write like a month's work of my in like a day. Like, he can write so fast. It's crazy. Not that he's like I don't know how fast he types, but there does appear to be an endurance aspect or something to writing. And he can just go and just pound out like 20 pages in a sitting and then another 20 pages in the next sitting. Whereas I can do 20 pages, but most of the time it's like a page a day.
Or me, like all other people in coffee shops around the world.
I have an idea.
I've done about 10 pages in a 1.5 year period.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all about just creating and having fun, right? And it's about, well, it's not. It's about the gods are yelling at you with all their might. You need to record this, and your brain starts exploding because the gods want so much, demand so much from you. So you start having to fill their demands.
The things I write more often is comedy.
So these,
like, I do that far more often, is writing comedy bits.
So with these video games, don't make a video game and say, okay, how do you make a video? You do this, this, and this.
What's funny is one of the things that's screaming at me to be written is the idea of a video. If I saw these things and I want to rant on my channel about how these people are doing it wrong, but I didn't want to get it wrong, and so I wanted to confer with you and get your ideas.
You want to work on the idea of it.
Yeah.
Stew it over. Yeah.
And then I'll stew it over even more while writing.
Yeah. Yeah, I could be wrong here, but identifying the aspect of soullessness is complicated, but it is worth doing because there is something...
Well, there is something wrong with these video games. Like, I look at them, and they're wrong. Like, so why I brought the vampire game is that game actually is the idea. That game is there's this city in the ocean that's been taken over by vampires, and you're 4 vampire hunters going through it kind of like Left 4 Dead, and you're using magic and your unique skills of each person, very typical in video games, to go and do this. But, like, the trailer, it caught my attention. Like, seeing the very original trailers game, they caught my attention. The characters suck, the characterization.
So a game we played the other day was called Icon's Legacy. Yeah. So I don't know if you know the history of that game at all. So that is by Team Wavedash, who are the creators of Project M. So Project M is a very highly regarded mod for Super Smash Bros. Brawl that makes it feel more like Melee. And people love Project M. They think it's... A lot of people still say it's the best Smash Bros. Game out there that there is. You haven't played Project M, you don't know.
Yeah.
It has some really cool features.
I think just Ultimate is...
Ultimate's pretty cool too. But we should play Project M sometime. It has really cool features.
Uh-huh.
Like, you can use Solar Beam. I think they got rid of that. You can use Solar Beam with Ivysaur. Like, he charges up the whole game and then he shoots this ridiculous laser across the screen.
Sorry, that'll just never trump Jake Samus's...
the Soul Beam or whatever.
The Soul Bomb.
Soul Bomb, yeah. From Rivals of Aether. Yeah. Yeah, so Project M, very skillful gameplay. The most in the series, potentially.
Yeah.
Maybe even more than Melee. It has... it feels great to play. Has a huge skill ceiling. And the characters feel great to move. Very... Most balanced Smash game out there. Like, everything's very carefully tuned. So this is Team Wavedash.
Yeah.
So what happened was Nintendo sent a cease and desist to Project M.
Yeah.
So Project M got cancelled. And so it's not played at tournaments anymore. And that has upset a lot of people because everyone loved it. And now they can't play it. So now it's back to Melee and Ultimate. And that's basically it. So what Team Wavedash decided to do was they would go and make a copyright-free version of Project M.
Yeah.
So they worked on Icons... they worked on Icons. It wasn't called Legacy back then. And so the characters are identical to the Project M characters almost entirely. So you have the goat is Fox, the Lucina is the Sword Lady, and then they created some of their own characters. What happened was a few problems. First of all, it turns out that if you make an exact copy of things, people say, well, why don't I just play the original?
Yeah.
The other thing is, Nintendo might not be great at making a... Team Wavedash, they're amazing at making a balanced fighting game.
Yeah.
Nintendo is great at putting love into games.
Yeah.
Everything feels nostalgic and fun and friendly in Nintendo games.
Yeah.
Even there's... Like, friendly isn't a kiddie thing. No, it's just... There's something inviting about Nintendo games.
Yeah, Metroid Dread is inviting it. God, I hate that game.
I'd actually argue that Metroid Dread is one of these soulless games, potentially.
Yeah, it's not.
You have to play the original Super Metroid and see.
It reminds me a lot of Fusion, and I love Fusion. Fusion had a lot of soul.
Yeah, but that's my point. You can't just copy something and copy the soul over. And so, like, play Super Metroid, and you will see that, like, wow, this is amazing.
Dread feels really good to play.
Yeah, but if it's just a copy of an already existing really good to play thing.
It's not exactly a copy.
People that play, like Romney, right? He played Heroes of Might and Magic HD and said this is amazing.
Yeah.
It's not. It's terrible. It's a copy of the most perfect game ever created. And I'm saying that as someone that isn't my favorite game. That's not even my favorite game in the series, Heroes 3.
Yeah.
But Heroes 3 is the most perfect game in existence.
Yep. Especially with Horn of the Abyss.
Yeah, and it's not even my favorite game in the series. I prefer Heroes 2.
Same.
But Heroes 3 is perfect. Which is another reason why you don't want to make a game like Song of Conquest. Because, one, Song of Conquest costs $40 or something like that. Maybe $35.
It's 20 something.
No, it's like 30 something, I think. Anyways, the people that play Heroes of Might and Magic
have Heroes 3 and Horn of the Abyss.
So you're competing with the best game ever made. And
the mod that improved it.
Yes, but also the reason people play Heroes of Might and Magic is because they have no money and it's really cheap.
And it's really
endlessly
easy to
replayable.
Run.
Yeah, and it runs on anything.
Yeah.
Songs of Conquest doesn't run on anything because it's a Unity game. It's not cheap, and it's not endlessly replayable yet. They do have plans for a randomizer, but they don't have that yet. You're competing with a... Because the people that play Heroes of Might and Magic are poor Eastern Europeans.
Yeah.
They're not buying your $40 game or $30 game or whatever. Well, they are because they're desperate, but you're up against
disappointing them.
Yeah.
And that's why the reviews for games like that, you're like, well, man, the Heroes fan base is rabid towards games that aren't perfect.
Yeah, it's because you're competing, and that's why Heroes Hour, it went off in a different direction slightly, and I think you need to, because if you compete directly, if you shoot for the king, you better not miss.
Yeah, so Fanstratics has a very dangerous road.
Yeah, well, Fanstratics, I've been disappointed by every single Heroes-like game, like the Country Ball one.
Country Ball. Yeah. It could have been so good.
I've been disappointed by all. Although Heroes Hour, I'm not disappointed by. But I do think it's just legibility is still a little bit messed up, and I'm the Dominions style combat. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of.
It's like directed Dominions. You have your little hero that can run about.
But it is. I don't mind Dominions combat. What I don't like is real time combat.
Yeah.
And Dominions, your hands off, so it's fine. But Heroes Hour is real time, so you actually have to be doing stuff if you want to be optimal. And I don't like that. I'd rather have time to think because I don't.
You can't concentrate on games like Age of Empires.
I don't like real time games. It's too hard.
RTSs are great though.
I would love if Skyrim had a super hot mod. I would love it. I think all RPGs should have a super hot mode where time only moves if you move.
There's an interesting Skyrim mod, which is it's actually quite popular. I went to the most endorsements in a year, and it's Skyrim Combat Overhaul. And the guy said, "This is not making the games like Souls, and this isn't a Twitch combat game. This is making the game's combat more like Skyrim's combat. So you have to carefully think through the fights."
Well, Valraven does that. It's really good.
Yeah, it's like you have to think through the fights. Going into your inventory is important. So just pausing the game and going to your inventory and like changing out your armor mid-fight's important. Like what potions you drink, changing out the arrows, equipping poison. It's like I didn't get the mod because I'm actually perfectly happy with Skyrim's combat as it is.
You should check out Valraven. Just look at its description, see what you think.
Okay.
It's really it makes shielding way better for one thing, which it gives you what Valraven does is it keeps Skyrim's combat, but it tries to give you reasons to use two-handed weapons and shields.
Yeah.
Because there's not really in base Skyrim much of it.
There's one reason to use shields in Skyrim, that's using the best shield in the game, which is called Spellbreaker, and that blocks spells and dragon breath attacks.
Yes. Yeah, so what it tries to do is stop you being a stealth archer because it's the best thing. It's like, look, two-handed weapons now kill anything in one hit, basically. Yeah. Shields now actually do something.
Well, also installing the archery mod reduces your want to be a stealth archer.
I don't like the archery mod because Bleed Out is so glitchy for me. Like it has ruined so many of my save games.
I'm actually going to install it because it's something I really like when you're doing archery. This is why so many people are archers in Skyrim. Is you draw back the arrow and you fire it, and Bethesda has a system in place where it will do a cutscene where it tracks the arrow and it hits the target. And something I love about that is while they're doing the tracking, the arrow can miss.
Yeah.
Or the target doesn't die because the damage roll was off by like 3 numbers.
Yeah.
But also,
Part of the charm.
it's so disappointing when I'm in archery combat and then the guy has 3 arrows sticking out of him and he stumbles forward and dies. It's like, no, I want to shoot him and have the arrow track into him and then have his body raked all funnily from the arrow hitting him.
The best part is when you just fire an arrow randomly and then it goes into slow-mo and it like curves around a mountain and hits a fox and you're like, whoa, I'm a genius.
I've never had that.
Oh, it's so cool. Called, yeah. It's happened once before to a friend of mine and then to me. So, yeah, when you're making this like soullessness for soul thing, it is something to think about heavily because, like you said, Rain World seems soulless.
Yeah. I wasn't playing the game, though. Yeah. That's another thing.
So, Rain World... Well, first of all, the controls are a nightmare. I'd like you to apologize because it is actually so hard to control that
I
game.
recognize the controls were a nightmare. I was making fun of you for that, though.
And that's on purpose. You're meant to be this
Slugcat.
awkward creature in a very dangerous world.
Yeah.
And why it's a Metroidvania and how the whole point of Rain World is you see how all those creatures have unique AIs and things they do. It doesn't tell you, there's no tutorial. You saw me starting from the start of the game.
Yeah.
There's no tutorial for that game.
No, there is. There's that stupid little bug that flies around, points things out to you, and
but,
you kept ignoring it and driving me insane.
But there's
that bug told you everything you need to know, and you're like, what am I doing here? I can't move about.
No, the bug's a mini map. It's not it doesn't tell you where to go. It tells you where things are.
It also is the tutorial at the very start of the game.
And I was trying to do it. I couldn't.
So annoying to watch.
It's so hard to
You're like a video game journalist trying to play Cuphead.
Except Cuphead controls well. Rain World doesn't, and that's on purpose. It's art. Look it up. No, so Rain World is very similar to a game called Tiki Tori. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
No.
It's another Metroidvania. All the abilities and items in the game are unlocked from the start, which is to say there's none. How you get better at the game is you learn. So one thing I learned was it's possible to fly if you capture a bug without it eating you. Because that's the other thing. The world's incredibly dangerous. So there's these mosquitoes. You didn't see one. There are these giant mosquitoes in the game.
Yeah.
And you can jump and grab onto their tails, and then they'll fly around, and you can hold onto their tail and go all over. But if you go near their mouth, they will Vlad the Impaler you, and you will die. They will suck you dry, So the lizards are territorial. You can get them to fight as a distraction. There's also because the entire game's mechanics are spoilers essentially, so I don't want to say them all. But the entire point of Rain World is you're a prey animal in a very dangerous world, and the only thing you have is your intelligence. And so figure out how to survive. Like we saw that plant, that thing that pretends to be a stick, and it's like a carnivorous plant.
Yeah. That's little bugs you can grab onto and use to jump higher.
So that's what the game is about. It's about discovery. It's about what are these mechanics? What can I do? It's that is not soulless design by any means. That is like, whoa, what can I do? That is not soulless. They weren't copying anything. They're like, let's make you feel. I want a game where you feel like a little prey animal in a very dangerous world, and you're trying to figure out how to survive using your wits alone. And he's like, really?
Yeah. So I was just thinking, Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
Valhalla.
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed actually lost me at the point where they add levels.
Yeah.
You couldn't instantly kill
starting
anything.
with Origins, they decided, hey, The Witcher's popular. Let's be The Witcher.
Yeah, but even when they started having levels on creatures, and you could no longer do an insta kill of any single target in the game, that's when Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, Origins did that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think what the problem was there was Assassin's Creed, and then there was 2, and there's Revelations and Brotherhood and all that. And what happened was you had the first creative game, the first Assassin's Creed, and then you had Revelations, which basically perfected the game, and then Black Flag added another mechanic to a perfected game. And then after that, they're like...
Well, the Civil War one with Connor, you could now climb trees and rock walls and like any surface. It wasn't just the specific buildings. He could climb anything.
So they polished it a bit for that one. And after that, they're like, well, we did it, but we still want to make money. So let's completely change to a different... Let's switch to a Witcher-like game.
But Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor, I really like those Assassin's Creed games.
Yeah.
And they are, like, they're...
Well, did you see like one game that was advertised during the Microsoft Fest where you're like a assassin fighting robots and you can like teleport and...
I saw bits of that.
Because Yang Ye, who was watching, was like, that looks like Assassin's Creed, but like more Assassin's Creed than the games.
Well, I love especially a Shadow of War, because they did some things that, like the taking over castles and having your own armies, but you can like the manipulations of these massive hordes. So it's like, these 3 guys are going to show up to kill you, like the 3 orc lords all together. However, you have mind controlled 2 of them, and so they're all 3 of them. They're like, "Oh, we're going to get you to Dang Tarkai. We're going to get to Yumi." And then the one guy that you actually want to kill is like, "All right, boys, let's get him." And then the 2 people next to him just pull out their knives and start stabbing him.
The best part about Shadow of War and Mordor is they copyrighted all the cool systems they made.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
But like
So
that's a shame.
Yeah.
But like the parts in the game where it's like, this guy can't be killed by this, can't be killed by this, can't be killed by this. And so you run up a pillar and then you jump off and stab him.
That's very important. I think the 2 best kinds of... There's 3 core pillars for games people enjoy that I've identified right off the top of my head, so I'm sure there's more. Yeah. But here are the 3 and only 3 that exist for pillars of games. 1 is a way to play with someone else, a way to be competitive and play with someone else, social aspect. Yeah. So that is one of the pillars that makes a great game. The other is discovery. So discovery is a huge aspect that basically all great games have.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is mastery. So a game like Ultimate might not have much discovery. Like there's discovering new combos and new ways to use a character. But the discovery isn't why people are playing so much. It's the mastery.
Yeah.
Although even then, there's people like, what does this item do? What does this item? There is still that, and I want to play this character and this. That's why there's 80 characters. That is the discovery aspect. Yeah. It's like, I want to be this one, I want to be this one, I want to be this one. And that's another one of those things. You buy the DLC for every single character, even if you don't want to ever play one of those characters. But I like that they're there.
Yeah. I
like that I have the option to play them. It makes me feel better about the universe.
Yeah. And someone can come along and go, "Oh, you don't have so-and-so?"
I think... You know how Heroes of Might and Magic, the unexplored land is like a star field?
Yeah.
They could release a DLC which added like a couple extra stars to that star field, and it'd make you feel complete. That'd be totally abusing that aspect of human psychology. But I bet you could get away with something like that. Because it isn't actually nice that they're there. Like, that is actually an abuse of that system. But
those stars being there?
Yeah, but it would make you feel better. You're like, now the world is complete. It's like the horse armor Bethesda did, actually. It's like, well, I might never want to armor my horse, but I like the idea that I can armor my horse.
Yeah.
And so I will pay for the privilege to not armor my horse. So that is a system that can be exploited. But yeah, so the other system, mastery. And and so when a game doesn't have a game that without soul can still give you mastery. Like Icons is still Icons has another huge problem. You know how there's lag when you play Fight Online? I don't know if you noticed it, but what Icons did, and they might have actually fixed it, so maybe I'm just crazy, because I think they ripped the system out. There's lag online, and most of this is going to be a competitive fighting game. We're designing it for a competitive crowd, not for the normal people.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to introduce lag into the offline version so that it stays the same no matter what you play. Like an insane person.
Yeah.
That's what they did. So they have no idea about marketing, and they also made it free to play with microtransactions.
I think another thing that makes a pillar of games, and this is slightly different, and I mean, you could argue Dwarf Fortress doesn't have this, but this is a problem a lot of people have with Dwarf Fortress. And it's your favorite line from Megamind. What's the difference between a villain and a supervillain?
Presentation.
Presentation can do a lot for a game.
I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but it is nice.
But, like, it's not... I'm not even just talking about looks. Like, the game feels good to play. The things you get out of the game are worth it. Like, the presentation in Baldur's Gate, like the main menu, that main menu sticks with you. Same with Dungeon Lords.
Like attention to detail.
Yeah, like, you press the button in Dungeon Lords, And yeah, when I made a website in media class, I had a feature which I became obsessed with, which my teacher is sort of like, I asked him how to do it and we went through it together and I like figured out a bunch of things, which is when I move my mouse over any of the selection bars, they would get an indent in them and slightly change color. So you knew your mouse was there. It wasn't, oh, I'm moving my mouse over and then I just click the thing. It's you move your mouse over it, and so you know your mouse is there. And then when you clicked it, I had a third graphic habit of it getting pushed in. And I spent probably 6 hours.
I'm just imagining this. Like, imagine a website or like a thing you use, like Excel spreadsheet, right? And it was designed by the menu designers for Dungeon Lords. And so you like type in your value in Excel and you hear like this scribe scratch, like, and then you press enter and it's like, and then like the number at the top where you're typing it, you know how it goes down to the cell? You just see like this chain descend this mighty stone block, like, and then you see like this thing, these golden light fly over to all the values it's modifying. It's like, it would destroy your workflow.
But the thing is, that attention is in the menu. You're in the menu for a minute.
Yeah.
And when it's in there for a minute, it is so worth its while. It makes the game a pleasure even to launch.
Yeah. There is like an aspect with computers now where it's like, get out of the person's way. And you can appreciate that because, you know, you don't want these annoying things getting in your way. But at the same time...
Launching Heroes of Light and Magic.
Yeah. There is... I guess there's a time and place for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is... Dungeon Lords...
Baldur's Gate, the music that plays, and then you just go through it.
So video games are meant to be something you indulge in, right?
Yeah.
A computer used as a work machine, you want the stuff to get out of your way.
Yeah.
So when games like all the games made by the Endless Legends people,
yeah,
and that game Humankind that they made,
yeah,
all their menus are like these flat boxes with numbers in them.
Age of Empires 4. Its menu, it's the GUI.
Right.
That was my
the GUI.
Yeah, it's GUI. I don't think I can ever play that game. Like I did the demo, and I had fun with part of it, but the GUI is just nowhere near any of their other games.
It's like not GUI enough.
No, Age of Mythology.
Yeah.
Number 2, number 3, they're like, even though each one of theirs was different to interact with, it felt like it should.
Yeah.
It's the only way I can put it. Felt like it should, whereas that one, it...
The Last of Us does this as well. All of its menus are just flat, static. The Last of Us 2. And what you're doing is you're saying, this is the busy work, so we're going to get out of your way so you can do your busy work faster. And wait, this is game's busy work? I don't want it to be busy work.
Whereas...
I want my game to go...
RimWorld.
Dun, 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 dun.
RimWorld's little side buttons, like you spend most of your game in those side buttons.
Yeah.
Those menus are nice to go through, and you know where things are, and they direct you to the right spots. And then someone makes a mod, like the management mod, and I tried to click on the management mod tab thing. I'm looking at that, and I'm going to uninstall management.
Yeah, well, it's efficient, but I mean...
It doesn't look like RimWorld.
I'm here to play a game, not to, I'm not a quartermaster.
Yeah, but it doesn't look like RimWorld.
Yeah.
It doesn't care about the menus, it's just getting it done.
And now there is an aspect where if a system is necessary to make the entire game work, especially a management sim, but the game is meant to be looking at the game, not the tools, then maybe the tools should be out of your way a little bit.
Yeah.
But... you have to be careful not to get those mixed up.
I think another part of the soul of the game, I know a lot of game creators will probably claim that they are trying to do this, but you want people to actually like playing your game.
Well, you should make a game that you want to play.
Yeah, you want to play, but also a game that's actually enjoyable. Like, and not even enjoyable, but like something that will make someone just like have a smile. Like,
so my pain is all over the place right now, right? Like, sore throat, sore arms, all this sort of thing. And so I go, do you want to play Darkest Dungeons? I'm like, no, I'm suffering enough. Or it's like Dark Souls, right? It sucks to get killed in Dark Souls to a cheap shot, or you messed up or something, or you, right? You know what hurts way more when you're playing Dark Souls? It's when it actually hurts to lose. You're like, I went through all this pain and I still lost. And now I'm just in pain and I feel bad about myself. But there's I was thinking, I think I understand JRPGs a bit better now. Like, I still don't like them, but I get it. Some people, they just want to get home and have a game tell them something. They don't want to actually, like, I think the fact that people like games like Dark Souls and RimWorld and Darkest Dungeons means their lives are, like, pretty easy.
Yeah.
Like people, actually, I think people that like JRPGs, they've got really rough lives because they need something. Like, I was thinking, I just want to play Thomas Was Alone again. A simple platformer with a nice British voice talking.
Stephen Fry, I think about this quite often. I'm a little obsessed with this, where he basically, you die, you go before heaven, God's there.
Yeah.
And he says, well, how dare you? Like, that's what he says, God.
Yeah.
Have you ever played RimWorld, Stephen Fry? And you play on builder mode. It's so boring. Like, you can make a nice town, you can go through it. Maybe that's what you're into. But it's so boring. Like, my favorite parts of RimWorld is I'm going along, and I finally have the system ready to defend me. So I'm in place, and then I have to overcome this little bit of difficulty. And, like, these setbacks. Like, I'm trying to hack a system right now, and because I have the bloody Warhammer 40k mod installed, one of the random pirates that decide to send against me as a constant invader is the Death Guard of Nurgle. And my colony's getting destroyed.
You should watch the Jordan Peterson Stephen Fry interview, because Jordan Peterson asks him about that.
Yeah.
And Stephen Fry's quoting someone when he does that. That's not his own thing exactly. And apparently he's being a bit tongue-in-cheek.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know what he's quoting, but they have this argument in the Brothers Karamazov.
Yeah.
And they talk about, I can see that a certain amount of suffering is necessary for a meaningful life.
Yeah.
But then he gives an example of a little girl who's senselessly murdered. And he says she didn't have a chance to suffer, like properly, like to overcome and face adversity. What do you say to her when she goes to heaven? Like, oh, well, it's for everyone else's benefit or something. And so that is where that maybe the chance for failure is necessary, but when someone never has a chance to succeed, then you say, well, couldn't they at least have been given a chance?
Yeah.
Like you say, sure, give me a chance to fall, but this person never had a chance to even try to succeed.
Yeah.
And that's where the argument can get much more complicated than just, well, it's like, my voice seppuku-y, so me. But Soul of Game, it's hard to identify, but it's worthwhile thinking.
I'm going to, part of the research, unfortunately, I'm going to have to watch, I think, all the game trailers, so I can actually look at it and better understand this feeling of looking at these game trailers, I think. I'm going to actually, because I want to make this right, and I don't want some random rant, so I'm going to actually have to look into it.
On that as above, so below thing, actually, it's interesting, because with game design, like, you can, like, I think the YouTuber who taught me the most in life was Total Biscuit. Like, about ethics.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you can take game design and you can kind of apply it to anything. And I think you can apply anything to anything. Like, you can probably say, everything you need to know about life you can learn from plumbing. Like, you can probably do that. What? No, I'm not laughing about plumbing.
No, I was just... don't stick your dick in it.
Right. No, there's actually a plumbing... training guide I just thought of, and it made me laugh. It's poop flows downhill, you get paid on Tuesdays. that's basic. Well, it's a bit more crude than that, but that's the outline. Yeah. All right. I want to think about more solo games. It's something I think about too. Like when I talked about the idea of creating a game, look for what they saw rather than just try to copy the game.
Well, that's what sort of my thought as well. But you, like, making something, not making a game. Yeah. Of course, there is the whole thing of Mario. It's a fun jumping system.
Yeah.
And making something around that's good. But like,
someone didn't say, okay, for a platformer, you chuck some platforms down and you make a man bounce. That's not what happened with Mario.
Yeah.
He's like, let's make this fun.
Yeah, but they didn't go, I want a story about a plumber who's fighting Goombas.
So the thing that's mind-blowing, right? The creator of Mario was two people. It was Miyamoto and a second guy, whose name I don't remember. He was the story writer. There was a writer There was a dedicated writer for this game. How does that guy sleep at night? Or is there some crazy background lore that he subtly wove into the game's fabric?
He did, actually.
Like, I mean, the blocks are all toads and...
No, but... Think about the enemies in Mario.
They're all stuff you might find in a sewer, like mushrooms and turtles and giant fire-breathing dragons.
They're so there. They're so in your mind.
I mean, they do fit somehow, like the piranha plants. Yeah, okay.
They're so... Like, everything in there... Like, if you take a step back from Mario, it's absurd.
Yeah.
It's a bad mushroom trip.
But it feels right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I gotta give the guy credit that it worked, but... How did he get that job? Like, I want you to make a game for my Jumpy Man. I want you to make a story for my Jumpy Man. Okay. I have an idea. But there's a condition, okay? You can't have any dialogue. I have to write a story for this game with no dialogue. Yep. Okay, what's it about? It's a guy that jumps on stuff. This will be my greatest achievement.
And he's based off this guy who was in the Donkey Kong game.
Yeah. It's, man, I mean, it is so what's it called? Verisimilitude? It's not even verisimilitude because it's, but it kind of is. It is. You feel like the world works.
Yeah.
Even though it shouldn't. It makes no sense. And it's actually interesting when you get to like Super Mario U or whatever it is. You start going, you're just repeating yourself, guys. Like I'm not feeling it. It's just the same thing over and over and over again. Like up until Super Mario World, they were innovating like crazy. And then after that point, you had like Galaxy and Sunshine and 64. They all did stuff that was cool. But then the new Super Mario Bros. For the Wii and Wii U, it's like, okay, you added multiplayer. Awesome. But then you're just in a rut. Which is really interesting that Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, it's like, okay, you're competing with Donkey Kong Country 2 specifically, which people think is one of the best platformers ever.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you did, but you surpassed it.
Well, what about the Hattie?
Oh, Battle Block Theater?
No. Mario with the hat. Is that Mario from the U game you're talking about?
Mario with...
Where you can possess things with your hat?
Oh, that's Super Mario Odyssey. Yeah, that added a whole new dimension. They made a great feeling moveset for like 100 things or something.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. So when Bethesda says they can make 1,000... I mean, Mario made 100 good feeling things in the game, so it's possible. But there's definitely some of the Mario games, like the new Soup especially, they just feel so like they're just retreading old ground because Pokemon, it's a perfect example. They haven't made any innovation since the first game. I mean, you had Silver and Gold, which doubled the size of the game.
The attacks in Silver and Gold and Fire Red look better than the attacks with their 3D models and all. Like, can't you have them actually like breathe fire and hit each other? Like,
the thing is, if you do the math on the amount of money Pokemon makes and the amount it would cost to give a unique move to every single Pokemon in the game had a unique animation for every single possible move they can have, you're like, well, that's ridiculous. There's like 800 Pokemon and like 40 moves per Pokemon. That wouldn't scratch the budget they have available. It's ridiculous how lazy they are. Like, they finally released Arceus, and it's like, even Arceus is like, they're kicking and screaming to be dragged into a semi-open world, and it still has like a 2 hour...
worse than Breath of the Wild.
It still has a 2 hour long tutorial at the start. It's like Pokemon... I think Pokemon 2 generations from now might actually finally be different from Gold.
You know, maybe one day Game Freak and the Pokemon Company will get on the same level as the Minecraft mod.
That's the best Pokemon game there is. Game Freak, I think they hate Pokemon. Like, I actually think they hate making Pokemon. But they made their own game.
Well, have you seen Weed Cat?
No.
The latest starters.
But they made their own game a while back. It was so similar to Pokemon in like all the wrong ways. Like a 2 hour tutorial, you're a kid who's like 10 and your dad's missing and your mom's single, and you go out into a world, but it's like a JRPG, but like a normal one, not a capture Pokemon one. But it's like, wait, so you were getting bored of Pokemon and you made
worse Pokemon.
Do you have zero like, I'm finally free from my fetters, I can do whatever I want, I'm going to make a nearly identical game. It's like, do they have no creativity? Like, I think the original Pokemon guy's still there, so I don't... Did he have one idea? He's just like,
I want to catch bugs.
He's just like, yes, I've come up with a brilliant plan.
Here's the thing. The battling was added in for extra. But do you know why he made? To catch bugs.
Yeah.
And so, they're like, we could innovate all this. No. I don't care about this stuff. Just make more bugs for me to
But
collect.
that's the thing. I hate JRPGs. And especially the combat. But Pokemon's characters are so good.
Also, Pokemon's
so good.
combat. So JRPGs is brr, 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 and 2 hours later you're like, ugh. Whereas in Pokemon, when you're fighting other trainers, not walking through tall grass. When you're fighting other trainers, and it's like, Charizard, use Blast Burn. Their health goes down to a half. And you're like, yes. Or you go, Charizard, use Blast Burn. And the thing just faints. And the next thing comes up, Charizard, use Blast Burn. And it faints. And you're just like, I am an unstoppable god.
That's
and then you fight the Elite Four. And you go, Charizard, use Blast Burn. And it doesn't work.
That's one of the main reasons people like JRPGs in the first place. It's not a fair criticism against the other JRPGs. People love that feeling of feeling like a god. That's one of the main reasons people like those games. I don't like that.
No, I'm not talking about feeling like a god. I'm talking about the start of a JRPG where you have to hit something 20 times and it's at half health.
Well, that's just a bad JRPG then.
Yes.
But no, I don't like turn-based combat like that. I don't enjoy it. Like, even if it's really well done, like Epic Battle Fantasy, I don't really enjoy it.
My favorite JRPG is the
Darkest Dungeon.
Well, Darkest Dungeon up there, but Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
Combat
well,
field.
that's an SRPG.
Okay.
That's a strategy RPG.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a strategy JRPG.
Well, they're called SRPGs.
Yeah, but it's from Japan.
Yeah, but the Japanese strategy RPGs are called SRPGs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really like those.
Get up with the I think they're called this. I don't know. I'm not a...
In fact, I like them so much that there's this game which basically strips out the RPG of actually going around and talking to people and trying to interact with the world and just flings you into those combats time and time again and you have to slowly go through them and solve them. And I have it on my Switch. And it's kind of like Battle for Westeros.
Is it called Battle for Westeros?
No, it's that game like it that you got me. I can't remember his name.
War Banner?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's another one. It's on the computer. It's like Here's My Magic. No, it's like Age of Wonders battles back to back to back to back. And I was looking at it and I was like, wow, I don't actually enjoy combat in these games. I enjoy the entire package.
With Age of Wonders, I do enjoy the entire package. And Here's My Magic
like
as well.
Same. I don't like King's Bounty because I don't actually enjoy the combat of Here's My Magic huge. Like it's the whole thing.
I beat King's Bounty. I tried Battle Princess.
Well, you beat King's Bounty too.
Yeah, I beat King's Bounty too.
Then...
I tried to beat Battle Princess. I've had enough of that game for my rest of my life. I don't need to play another King's Bounty.
Yeah, no, it's...
Like, it was enjoyable. I went through it. I'm done.
I wonder if that's how Here's My Magic was developed. They made King's Bounty, and they're like, this is overwhelming. We need more than combat. We need strategy.
Yes. Yes, and King's Bounty. Oh, Songs of Conquest did this, and I partly understand why they did it, but they didn't have to. Which is you have max size to creature stacks. No.
I'm okay with it, I think. I think I'm okay with it.
No.
I was thinking about it, and I think I'm okay with it. It's different, but I didn't like it at first, but I thought about it, and I think I'm okay with it.
I'll play King's Bounty if I want that system. In fact, actually, even their song system is remarkably similar to Battle Princess's Rage. It's just instead of having one color of rage orbs, they just added 8 of them. But that is Songs of Conquest's Rage system that they
right.
So that's Battle Princess's Rage system, but they have in Song of Conquest.
Except the difference is in Battle Princess, the rage is interesting because you can get new spells, whereas in Songs of Conquest, the set of spells in the game is set and you can't get more.
I really like their magic, but
Here's
I would
My
like
Magic,
to get more.
You go to a shrine in Here's My Magic, and you learn Mirth, and you're like, Mirth? Well, it's all I have, so I'm going to use it. And suddenly you're using this whole new way of playing the game. You're like, because right now I'm playing Horn of the Abyss, and I've got these dudes that can shoot like amazingly. And so I've been casting Mirth on them, and they're shooting twice per turn, and I'm like, this is so cool. Like, I've got an archer that can shoot twice because I'm so happy.
Yeah.
And it's very cool. And also, we didn't stop when we said,
Yes,
let's
so we're
bye!
stopping there.
Go away! I don't love you anymore. I never did.